Call to order the meeting, City Council meeting for Monday, August 20th, 2018. Roll call.
Barnes.
Here.
Gary.
Here.
Austin.
Here.
Mazias.
Here.
McGrath.
Here.
Novacek.
Here.
Oswald.
Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes in City Council meeting July 9th, 2018. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any questions, comments, additions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of monthly expenditures. Motion to approve.
I move approval of the monthly expenditures.
Second.
So roll call vote.
Oswald. Novacek.
Yes.
McGrath.
Yes.
Mazias.
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Now it's time for public comment, which you have a few minutes to discuss anything you'd like. Please come up to the microphone and please state your name and your address. Is there anyone who'd like to speak to the City Council about any item? Anything at all? Yes, sir.
Tom Nyman, 605 West 4th Street. I hear the zoning ordinance is going to be changed. I commend the city council for doing it because it's about time. But on my side of town, in my district, almost half the people in that district do not know who the councilors are, have never seen them, never met them. So somebody is not doing their job. So who are you working for? A certain few or the whole district? That's my question, and the barge company should be allowed to come in, let them take that lot 48 and build, because that's good jobs. And also gonna increase revenue for the city, more so than houses. That's all I got right now.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak to city council?
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Joe Groshek, and I'm not a city resident, so I don't know if I can speak here.
Yes, you can.
Okay. My address is 30650 Sky Road, and what I wanted to talk about was something that's going to be on the agenda, and it's regarding the two lots that are for sale, 77 and 40, or 47 and 48. 40 years ago, my wife and I settled up here because of Lake Superior and because of the lifestyle Lake Superior has afforded us. I know that the city is in dire straits of money. I understand that. However, I think that if you're looking toward the future, more money will be coming in from the development of that area that you're considering now with housing than would be other types of development. Every comprehensive plan that I have seen, and I've seen a lot of them though, even though I haven't been a city resident, has accented the lake and the connection with the lake. I feel, at least from what I can understand, that this proposal that's proposed for construction from the marine construction company is going to impact that comprehensive plan that I have seen the city citizens of Washburn approve for 40 years. I don't think it's compatible with where Washburn is going. And like I said, I think that the revenue that's going to be gleaned from the housing development that could happen there is going to, in the end, overshadow anything else that could happen. The comprehensive plan also stated that, and it's my understanding, that any industrial development along Central would be curtailed or would be cut back as much as possible to ensure that that view and that connection to the lake be retained. It's disheartening for me to see Washburn not able to see the lake for the waves. You know, Washburn is on the precipice of becoming an incredible community because of the lake that we have. I understand the issue with economics. I understand that this is an opportunity for Washburn if there is a development there with the marine development to have a short-term gain, but I think in the future this is not where Washburn wants to go. You know, our future is connected to the lake and getting people to come here to see the incredible beauty and resources that we have and then come back. And that's the thing that Washburn needs to understand. Come back and make investments in living here and staying here and developing other things in the community. That's why I came here. That's why we came here. All I'm saying is think very, very strongly about the future and where you want to go. And don't be blinded by a short-term gain. Think about your family, think about your kids, think about your grandkids, think about the community in itself. Washburn has opportunities that I have not seen anywhere else. We have the opportunity to be careful about how we're developing and what we really want to develop and how we want to do that. But like I said, everything that I've seen from every plan that has come over my eyes in the last 40 years has been retain your vistas to the lake, retain your connection to the lake, make places where people can come to connect with that, and because of that, the business will come. Because of that, the community will come. And you know, you don't have to understand that really that deeply, because you can just see the cars go through here and go to Bayfield, because they realize that there's a connection to the lake there. I'm not saying that we should necessarily promote things like that, where it's like rampant development, tourism development, but we have opportunities here and resources that nobody else has. We're bounded by two beautiful parks. We've got a beautiful lakeshore trail now that is being even more developed. We've got beaches that other places don't have. We've got a mile of public lakeshore. Don't throw those things away for a short-term gain. Like I said, I'm not a city resident, so I don't know exactly what the finances are for the city, but I am a committed citizen to this area. And Washburn has been in my sphere for both relationships and business for 40 years. I don't want to lose that. I want this to continue, and I want it to be a place where I can tell people to come and they can see why we came up here and why we stayed up here. So that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you,
Please
Carol.
be very careful.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Please state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Heather Stover. My address is 29 West 3rd Street. I'm going to try to calm my nerves a tiny bit. I noticed most of you guys, I worked for Jeff Langford for 7 years before he passed away on us. One thing, well, friends, I'm really glad he's not a resident here. I'm glad he's been here for 40 years. My husband's family has been here for 5 generations. My husband got out of the Marine Corps. We looked at each other, and it was Columbus, Ohio, or Washburn, Wisconsin. We chose Washburn, Wisconsin. We chose it for the community. I don't know if everybody in the community truly understands what Pearl Beach Construction does. They help rebuild the shoreline. Little Sand Bay might be without a marina if it wasn't for these guys. Go out to Roy's Point, see what they're doing. I was unable to find a job here that competed with Jeff's wages. I then had to go to Ashland. So from where I live on 29 West 3rd Street, I can literally walk to work. I was able to do that. By moving to having to work to Ashland, I was unable to do that anymore. I had to pay $15,000 a year in childcare for the Early Learning Center. So it made it to the point where, with nobody being able to compete with that wage and what I was doing in Washburn, me and my husband were struggling hard. And then luckily a group of guys came into Patsy's one night for dinner and said, "Hey, what do you do?" And he said, "I'm a welder." And they said, "We got work for you." He now is able to be working to where I can stay home with my children and help raise my kids. I'm sorry, I'm really worked up over this. If it was me and you put my house on the lake and you put it next to that county garage, I would be so upset. I don't know how many people in this town can afford $200,000 houses unless you work for the city, the state, you work at the school. Most people who are working elsewhere who are not, they don't have money like that. So what type of people are we bringing in? Are we really looking for the community, or are we looking for those people who are coming up from the cities who want to buy summer homes? We have a lot of homes in Washburn that need work. I'm not against homes coming in. I'm not against the duplexes. I think they would be beautiful right behind Stage North, where you have a beautiful lake with the view of the lake, and you can still access a lot of stuff on Main Street. I'm glad you didn't know anything about our economics. I believe that it was said last time that the Public Works Department is in the red. I believe that was said last time. I don't know why we would not bring in Pearl, I don't know why we would not bring them in to help with our service. I guess I'm kind of confused. I'm sorry that I'm so worked up and I had a big spiel, and most of you guys probably seen it on Facebook Live, but I just wanted to get my point across. As a young family here, we can go visit Bayfield. We don't have a ferry line. We're never going to be able to compete with Bayfield. We can't. We don't have a ferry line, guys. It's not going to happen. So why not be that quiet little place that everybody does like to come and visit and stop in between? People do stop. I worked at the pharmacy. Trust me, people stop in Washburn. They stop for socks and underwear that we don't have because they don't want to buy them at the ABC thrift store, but that's a different ballgame because we've already turned down Family Dollar. But, sorry, Mom and Dad, most of you guys know the Stokers are quiet, and I'm not a quiet one. So, I guess now that I'm all shaky, I think that's what I'm going to say, and I'll end it at that.
Just to dispel rumors, the Public Works Department is not in the red.
Was that not said at the, somebody had said at the last meeting that something was in the red? Okay, well, I'll go back and watch that video.
Water.
Clarify that.
The sewer department is in red, but it's always has been subsidized by other parts of the city. Yes, please.
I'm Donna Krumalis. I live at 320 West Omaha Street. I was born and raised here, moved away to the East Coast and to the West Coast, and I saw the value of the lakeshore property, ocean property, in that case. And I think, having grown up on Lake Superior and seeing the value of that property increase over the years, not necessarily for locals, but for people who want to invest in property on the lake. And it's a rare commodity. There are very few places on the lake that you can buy and build a nice retirement home or whatever. And I'm saying, or want to say that the value of the land that you're selling is way underpriced. Like I say, there's probably a handful of nice shoreline property available. Everything else is taken with a house, or, heaven forbid, industry. They can go in the woods someplace. They don't need a view. They don't need the energy of the lake, the beauty of it. We have visual beauty and we have energy beauty. I know you all feel that when you go down there, especially Memorial Park. So I know I'm coming into the game here a little bit late. You've already established a price, but the value of that land is far more expensive than a manufacturing place should be at, is where I'm saying. It should be housing, and so it's a $250,000 condo that people have to buy. It's probably not the locals who are going to buy that. They're going to come in because this place is a beautiful retirement place, and the average age of its occupants is rising, indicating that we have a lot of baby boomers wondering, what should I do with all my money? Where can I go and have a good time? It's a good time place, a good view place, good energy place, nice people. So I'd say, I'd vote no for industry, I'd say yes for people, places, residences. And raise the price, double it, triple it.
Thank you, Donna.
I also lived in Santa Barbara, California. In 1970, we bought a place, just a cheap 3-bedroom ranch. Cheap, for $23,000. 3 years later, I decided to come back to the area, 4 years maybe, and the price doubled, just like that. And I was back there for a convention, and about 20 years ago, I asked, what's the value of this place, area? $750,000, and now it's over $1 million for this shack. It's not the value of the building, it's the value of the scarce land. See what I mean?
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
Jeff Pitgrass, 403 First Avenue. I'd just like to say that Carl, it seems, has tried to meet every zoning requirement with that lot. I think the city should let him proceed forward with it. It really isn't lake frontage. And seems like he's kind of bent over backwards to go with this. Done what I can do to help out the city out with it, and I say yes, let business come into town. Thanks.
Anyone else like to speak?
My name is Jan Stouffer, Generation 3 of the Stouffer clan here in town, 526 East 3rd Street in Washburn. I'd just like to say there are condos and houses for sale in Washburn. They don't always sell. I'm looking at the Boomtown condos on Main Street. There's some little duplexes up off of Grandview Boulevard. that didn't sell very quickly. So why we would consider building more condos or duplexes or new houses in Washburn, I don't think that's what the people of Washburn are really looking for. I also appreciate the lake and the opportunity to spend time on the lake and view the lake. I live a block off the lake on 3rd Street. And this property, Lot 48, that Pearl Beach wants to purchase is not on the lake. It is a lake view. It's also in an area with the county garage, which while it's not industry, it certainly looks like industry when you drive down the avenue and look at the county garage. The marina itself has a lot of industrial looking buildings and area to it. So I think building this Pearl Beach building on Lot 48 kind of fits right in with what has already been started in Washburn, and why would we turn that area into a park or a housing area? It's kind of already there, all the way backing all the way up to the highway where you have Washburn Iron Works. And again, an industrial looking business. So I'd just like to say, also, I've lived here for 40 years. I'm not originally from Washburn, but my husband was. And in the 40 years we've lived here, we sat last night and discussed how many business opportunities have come into this town. When I was 25 years old living here, I didn't care what came or went from Washburn. But as I got older and my children grew and left the area to work, it became obvious to me that we need more industry in this town. I watched my children leave town. I watched their classmates leave town in droves to go to bigger cities to work. So I'd just like to encourage the city council to be more open to any kind of jobs and industry coming into this town, to keep our young people here, to keep our school full, to keep our churches full, to keep our community full. To see Aaron come back here and be on the city council, that's a wonderful thing. And we need more young people in Washburn to stay here and be able to come back here and work and live and raise their families here. They'll build the houses when they come. I don't think we need to build houses hoping they'll come. We need to build jobs for them to come to and stay here for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment? Although we know you, please.
Ruth Ameren, 409 West 7th Street. I really didn't plan on speaking this evening, but this is a very good and viable subject on which to talk. Washburn has city planning. It has areas that are set up for industrial. It has areas that are set up for residential. We need both. We need resident and we need industry. And they each have designated areas in the Washburn plan. Unless that's changed somewhat over the last few years. But it's kind of like the Old West with the cattlemen and the sheep herders. We need them both. So if we can just keep that plan in mind, and when people do come in to buy properties to do different things, kind of designate some of those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes.
It's nice being on the other side for a change. Robert Arquette, 301 West 4th Street. Of these two proposals for development, I've given a lot of thought to it. I've read everything I can get my arms around, and I would strongly urge the city to consider the Pearl Beach proposal. And there are many reasons, but I want to highlight one. recently, the city received a grant for $1.3 million to restore the coal dock to health. Okay. That was predicated on that dock being used for commercial purposes. I really wonder if we did not go with the Pearl Beach proposal, I really wonder what the people, the agency awarding us this grant, how they would react to that. The other thing is this, is that the type of business activity, has anybody been to Munising, Michigan? Okay. The reason I cite that is because it's a town, it's a little bit larger than Washburn. And when you go down from the main street, down to their waterfront, first go by the really nice park, mature trees, what have you. And then when you get down to the piers and wharfs, you have a mix. You have the marine activities, you have personal boat ownership, and you have commercial activity, barges and things, what have you. It's great. It's a real town. That's what real towns are all about. You have all these activities, and of all the business opportunities, this one, in a very real fashion, links the activity, the life of this town, to the Lake Superior just as much as fishing or any of the other activities. And I really think it's incongruous. I mean, we really should reflect on our thinking about, were we really serious about the coal dock being used for commercial purposes? I think that was embedded in our strategic planning, the assumption that that would not change. Well, if that's true, then let's develop it. And we have an opportunity. And this is not, somebody seemed to be thinking of this as a short-term opportunity. Unless I'm mistaken, this is Pearl Beach's business. If you look into them, they do this at many different sites throughout the Great Lakes. And I think if anybody knows, number one, is there a market for my business? And number two, can I make money and stay and prosper? You know, I think they've proven that they understand this. So I think it's a terrific opportunity. And to an earlier point, one of the speakers, what draws people to a town more than good jobs relative to all the other jobs in the area? We have a terrific number of service jobs. And they're historically low paying, and it's probably going to continue that way. In these jobs, there is some specialization, and I would think that people going out on a barge to do work at a site ought to know what they're doing. And I'm sure knowing that and being able to do that is reflected in their salary and wages. So with that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please.
My name is Carl Broberg. I live at 915 County Road C. I'm president of the Harbor Commission. Last week I had the opportunity to represent Washburn at the Wisconsin Commercial Ports Association meeting. It was a 2-day event. I won't bore you with all the details and everything that they covered at that time, although a lot of what was discussed is applicable to our situation here. But one of the things that they did bring up was the need for protection of a corridor and access and use of the commercial pier. When you have a commercial pier, you need to have access to it, you need to have facilities available to it in order to maximize its use. So I would just offer that as a comment that was discussed in some detail and some of the issues that come about with road access, facility access, and the ability to keep a commercial, port viable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Last chance? Okay, thank you very much. On to mayoral announcements and proclamations and appointments. First, we have the Lake Superior Byway Committee representatives. We currently have Dora Kling as a representative and Mary Nowakowski. Dora Kling is willing to be representative again. Mary Nowakowski has declined, so there will be an opening on that committee if anyone would like to be on the Scenic Byway Committee. It's been quite successful. Dora has been on since its inception, as has Mary. They do a lot of things about Highway 13 loop around whole county, so please contact us. We will accept your application if you'd like to be. Scott, can we take that tonight? Even though I don't have anything in the binder? So I will nominate Dora Kling to be the Scenic Byway representative for the city of Washburn.
I'd second that.
Actually, you have to make the motion.
Oh, I thought you were making.
I suggest.
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that Dora Kling be one of the representatives of the city of Washburn on the Lake Superior Byway Committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
for those who might be interested, how often and when does that committee meet, do you know?
I don't know the details. I don't think they meet, I think they meet at least once a month, or maybe less if there's no pressing items, or slightly more if they have a project they're working on.
If you have council representative, that's not what
council
Mary's
can
role
be.
was.
Mary was on when she was a council member, but it doesn't have to be a council representative.
Okay, thank you.
But if a council member would like to be on it, we would welcome them.
We'll see if somebody from the public would like to step up first,
Okay,
and
thank
so
you.
then I may be interested, but we'll
Yes.
see if we get some community members.
And I wanted to announce that Wednesday at 5:30 at Jackie's Field is the grand opening of the park that was so successfully done by the Playground Moms. They did a phenomenal job there. They took it in hand, and the results are wonderful. 5:30 on, there will be ice cream sandwiches, and you might see the assistant city administrator and mayor going down the slide with or without an ice cream sandwich. I'm excited about that part. Please attend. And one thing I've been mentioning a lot as I've been mayor is our sense of community. And even though we're not a large community, you sort of know everyone. Since our last meeting, very unfortunately, we've had the deaths of 3 prominent people in our community. I'm very sad to say. Nona DeMars, Ryan Wolfram, and Andy Anderson, all 3 have made significant impacts in our community, in our lives of every one of us. I'm sad to see all of them go. Please make comments to the families and community members. It's going to be a sore and bad loss for this community. So that's all I want to say there. Next, we have the public hearing discussion and action on resolution 18.009 to vacate the unopened alley on block 23 of the original hillside addition to Washburn, along with the portion adjacent to the vacated North 4th Avenue East James Bowden petitioner. And we have slightly different, I hope everyone got the revised information from our city administrator. Scott, do you want to say anything about this?
Other than Plan Commission had recommended its approval, see no issues with the vacating of this alley. Mr. Bodine is intended to obtain the entire alley. The other property owner has agreed to sign a deed portion of it to
So I would ask to open the public hearing.
If that requires a motion, I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing for resolution 18-009.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now having a public hearing for this motion, for this request. Anyone would like to speak to this, please step forward. If not, thank you. Okay. Is there a motion to approve this resolution 18.009?
Make a motion to approve resolution 18009 to vacate the unopened alley in block 23.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Any questions, comments? First, is there a motion to close the public hearing? I'm
I'll
sorry.
make a motion to close the public hearing.
Busy week. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I shouldn't fail to mention that there's an item on the agenda that has been withdrawn. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that at the beginning, and that is the request by the Washburn Heritage Association to perhaps change the name of Bayfield Street. That has been withdrawn, so that will not be discussed tonight.
Mr. Mayor, just a little clarification, there were two motions there. One was to close the public hearing and another to approve the resolution. I don't know which one.
You're not gonna second on the closing the public hearing.
Okay, so do I have a second on closing the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is discussion and action on resolution 18.007, authorizing the renewal of a $50,000 line of credit for the Washburn Marina operations. I'm sorry. I'm not doing well. Next, discussion and action on Plan Commission recommendation to approve conditional use permit to operate a tourist rooming house at 505 West 3rd Street. Timothy Hayes, petitioner, and I think Mr. Hayes is in the audience. Do you have any questions for him? So that information is in your packet. Is there, this has been discussed at the Plan Commission and approved. Is there a motion to approve this recommendation?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion?
What was the resolution of parking? I wasn't clear on that.
The resolution of the parking was, it was determined by the plan commission that there was adequate space for spots. That was what they.
And because the owner intends to rent it mostly to one family at a time.
That is
No more than 2 vehicles at a time.
But there was room for 4 vehicles.
If needed.
The only other item on this is once if it's approved, it would be valid when we receive the health department permit. And unfortunately, the agent is recently deceased, so a new agent will need to be named. They can do that as soon as they have some.
Minor administrative details. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, discussion action on resolution 18.007, authorizing renewal of $50,000 line of credit for the Washburn Marina operations. Scott, do you want to make a comment on this?
This is a line of credit. We've had this line of credit since the current marina operator has been in place. So it's been some 11 years. We have to renew this every 2 years. So it's a routine item.
This is a backup in case they have something they have to buy immediately and have the ready cash. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I make
Sure.
a motion. Oh, sorry.
Sure, I'll make the motion to approve resolution 18-007, which is extending the line of credit to the marina of $50,000.
So, Linda, can we assume you're a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
So they, just curious, have we ever had to use this line of credit? Okay,
We never have, but
right, just,
just be cautious.
yep, thank you.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes, thank you. Next, discussion and action on resolution 18.008, authorizing the borrowing up to $750,000 for the coal dock rehabilitation project. Scott, would you like to comment on that?
Yes. As you're aware, we are putting together the final plans for the coal dock project. And I expect that to be released before the end of the month. And the estimate on the project, unfortunately, has increased for a couple of reasons. One, with the number of projects in the area and storm damage that has begun, a lot of materials have increased in price. And second, because this project would utilize a lot of steel, and with the recent issue with tariffs on steel, the steel market is unstable and prices have increased as well. So with that, we're currently anticipating that the city will have to contribute more to this project than was originally anticipated a year ago when we began this process. So I'm hoping at this point that $750,000 would be adequate. I won't know exactly until bids are received, but I do need to get something going with the financing on this. Had checked with local banks, the state trust fund, Bremer Bank have the lowest rate available to us, so that is the recommendation to go with Bremer Bank. This would be a tax exempt borrowing, and this would be a 10-year borrowing promissory note. I don't want a balloon payment on it if we can avoid that, so that it can only be 10 years. The Harbor Commission had previously agreed to contribute $350,000. That's originally what we thought our match would be on this grant over the previous estimate. So the additional $400,000, the Harbor Commission was not able to accommodate that amount of funding. And so we're back here with the council to contribute $400,000 towards the coal dock project. So this would result, all things being equal, in a tax increase for the residents in the neighborhood of 5%, unless it would be somehow absorbed into the rest of the budget. And I can tell you that is going to be difficult to meet. Budget will hopefully be presented next month. So that is what we are looking at right now if we want to go forward with this project. This does tie into other issues on the agenda. There's potential revenue off the dock that could help offset that amount. We don't know exactly what that would be, but anything would help to lower that rate. So we will make that clear.
I have a question, Scott.
Yes.
So the Harbor Commission's contributing $350,000, and the city is borrowing an additional $750,000, or the city is borrowing an additional $400,000?
The borrowing would be for $750,000 at this point. The Harbor Commission would contribute the equivalent of the $350,000 of that principal and interest. So basically,
so the Harbor Commission is getting $350,000 of that loan as their contribution, and then the city, $400,000 is their contribution, and the city's paying the interest on their contribution, and the Harbor Commission will pay its interest.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And as I understand it, it may not be that amount, depending on the bids, which we don't have, or it may in fact be more, depending on the bids.
Right. And you said in your memo to us that if it's less, if it turns out that with the bids, the work is actually less, then you'll just pay the loan.
Correct.
Good to know that.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
So is there a motion to approve this resolution of 18.008, authorizing the borrowing of up to $750,000 for the coal dock rehabilitation project?
So moved. Second.
Any other comments or questions?
yeah, I guess this is a completely different place than where we're at. It's, I mean, to have, so we're talking at least a 25% increase. So we're increasing it by $400,000. Is that what I'm seeing here? I guess my other question is, I'm just, we got the grant funding. Is there any opportunity at all for us to go back for a second round of grants or anything to explain? I mean, we had a catastrophe in our area. I mean, it was a delegated state emergency that we had for flooding, and that's affecting these prices of gravel and everything else. And I'm not saying I'm not for this, I'm just trying to have a conversation because being on the finance committee for many years, I understand what this means, and it understands for us to have an increase to our taxes, which I get quite a few comments from our constituents about our tax is already. And so I want to be very clear on why we're doing this, the importance of it, and that we tried everything we can to, because we made a decision to do this, which I think was a good decision because we had a great grant opportunity. Things have changed. We had a flood, we had an emergency situation. I'm just asking the questions. So.
We can certainly ask. I believe that the likelihood is unlikely because the transportation fund, those are dollars the state borrows for, so they have limited funding for that program. And that's done on a cycle as well. If we happen to have any leftover from any other projects, we can certainly ask that question. But going forward here, I do want to be prepared, and we have to accept that as a real possibility.
Real possibility. I agree. But I would like for us to at least take that couple minutes to draft a letter to explain what's happening. I mean, there's a lot of money right now that's going around for ERPO funding for the estate, for this emergency that happened. And this is kind of a indirect effect of that. And it's a lot of money for our community, so, and consequences for our taxpayers, so.
Mr. Grover, who's the president of the Harbor Commission, I believe has information for us, if you will be willing to open the floor.
I make the motion to open the floor.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please, Carl.
The fund is the Harbor Assistance Grant, and for 2017, there was $5 million available. There were 4 grants given to the tune of about $4.2 million, right around there. We got the largest chunk of that, $1.3 million, just shy of $1.3 million. The remainder of that fund was held in reserve for emergencies, and part of that has already been used up by the collapse of the wall where the Badger ties up on Lake Michigan. That wall is collapsing, and so the balance of the fund. So the Harbor Assistant Grant has been pretty well exhausted for this year, and we are committed to spend the funds this year, or we lose it. There are other grants available, but they're not anywhere near as significant as the one that we received. I did receive some information on additional grants, and we're going to be asking the question whether or not we'll be able to get any of that money. But I can't tell you right now that there's a chance of getting that until we do more research and have a discussion with them.
Okay.
Question, Carl?
Thank you very much.
Could I ask another question? How operational is the coal dock as it is? I mean, what is the span of time that you could use that commercially at this point? Do we know? Like if it weren't rehabbed?
Well, the problem we have is the south wall, which was the first wall to be repaired, is anchored by the east wall. And so the east wall collapses, the south wall potentially collapses. So given the condition of I'm gonna have to go. we really need to get the east wall fixed now.
Follow up on that. We do have,
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
we do have a time limit on the existing grants. We have to have this project completed by the end of June. Okay, so
Thank you.
Carl is an EMT and has a dash off. Move motion to close the floor. Is there a motion?
Move to close the floor.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry.
We're done, thank you. No one wishes to raise taxes, I'm sure, but I've heard pretty much overwhelmingly the desire of this community to save the coal dock. This is the way to save the coal dock. It's gonna cost money, things are out of our control, the president's tariffs have affected us, this is the local effect of that tariff. So local people will be paying more for steel, and which we need quite a bit for this project. And other things that are out of our control. We could decide not to accept the money from the state and risk what happens to coal docks. That's a city council decision. Maybe it'll fall apart, maybe it won't. But if we go this way, we have to finish the project, which means we have to borrow the money to do it. Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick question. If, so hypothetically, we weren't to repair the coal dock, what would be the cost of, we'd probably have to remove it.
Potentially, we don't know what the DNR would say. I
mean-
doubt they'd just let it rot.
Right, so that may cost hundreds of thousands of dollars as well, so I'd rather spend the money to fix it than to remove it.
Given the size of that dock, I think it'd be more expensive to remove it than to repair it. Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was unanimous, thank you. We have two items that are quite related, and with your forbearance, I would like to sort of combine the two so that we'll hear from both parties. It's the discussion and action on Coral Beach for their purchase of lot 48, and then discussion and action on offer by American Hotel Association to purchase lots 47 and 48. I'd like to sort of combine those two so we don't vote on one before the other. And so we can hear both parties and hear what they all have to say for a fair hearing. So, I guess since Mr. Dornberg wishes to have just one lot, Mr. Dornberg, do you want to say anything about anything else? Please do.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, and I owe a thank you to the city for all the work that you guys have put in to try and make this all dovetail together and help all parties involved with this. As you know, back in February, I originally asked for lots 47 and 48, and I could get by with 48, so we took a pass on 47. I've heard talks about industrial. Right now, the way we're going to do this building to make everybody happy and all parties, Mr. Pipgrass has stepped forward and offered to allow me to park all the equipment, all the materials on his property. What we're going to do there now meets existing zoning. There is no rezoning. I've heard the word industrial used several times today. It is not industrial use. It meets the zoning that is applicable for that area. It dovetails in with the things that are going on with the coal dock. And it's also another way to generate revenue. The question came up on the revenue. I've got about 800 tons of stone down there to be delivered right now. That would generate the city about $2,000. The National Park Service is redoing Devil's Island, the dock out there next year. If I was to be awarded it, that project alone would probably be about a $10,000 payment to the city to move all that stone out there. It's a huge project. On the average, I would say we're talking somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 a year in moving stuff. Like I said, the first 800 yards, I'm going to need 2 or 3 times that is going to be 2,000 right now. That's coming across the coal dock. Again, no rezoning, no industrial. Mr. Pipgrass is allowing me to move all the equipment back to his property over there, so there's no things sitting outside. I conceded on lot 47. We just need lot 48. The plan that's in place now is 11 years old, and there's this talk about condos and needs, and I'm not a realtor, but I went on Zillow and looked myself. There is a condo that's in the green building right out that back door that's been on the market for well over a year for $139,000. It's 1,500 square feet. That works out to about $93 a square foot. I've done building, I've done developing. For somebody to do the site planning, the engineering, to do all the underground, the water, the storm drain, and build there, you cannot do that for that. You can't build for that price. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if I was the developer, I would probably start up by the Stagecoach and build there, because I think somebody else had mentioned that you're in closer walking distance to downtown. There is no reason why these two projects can't both work in harmony together. And I just don't get it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I looked there, several houses, there's houses in Washburn on the market right now as low as $65,000. So I heard another young lady here say something about the population's getting older. The population's getting older because there's no jobs, so the young people are leaving. And you need jobs to keep people here so they can raise a family and not leave the community. So it actually, you know, her comment just like echoed right home that that's why we need jobs here. I don't know that Washburn will ever be a Bayfield, or should it ever be a Bayfield. I don't know if you built condominiums, if you could build them at a price point that they would even be marketable. You know, when this plan was done 11 years ago, everything's changed. The cost of everything's changed. Labor's changed. Materials have changed. And I was talking to a developer here in the area, and one of the things he said is millennials aren't like the baby boomers. Baby boomers want the cabin up north, the house at the beach. And he said they're having problems with their development because millennials want to go someplace and visit, and or maybe then move on. You know, I wish there was a realtor here that could say to echo on why these condos have sat here at $139,000 and they're not market. So all I'm saying is that's $90 a square foot. You can't build it, you can't sell it, there's no margin, you can't do anything with it. It's not exact. I've heard people say waterfront property several times. It's not waterfront. It does have some limited views. But like I said, I would start at the Stagecoach where I love Michelle to death, but I don't know that you'd want to look at boats and bunks and trailers and stuff all every day too. I think we can do both. If there's any other questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. But yes, ma'am.
I have some questions. What's your time frame? When would you begin? When do you see it completed?
I think the biggest thing we're dealing with here after talking to CNS Engineering is I would require state approval, they feel. So I'm kind of subjected to the permitting process here. And we started this back in February. And so by this fall, I'll be lucky to, you know what I'm saying? So it wouldn't be until next season sometime, you know.
2019?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
How many employees do you have now?
About half a dozen. We're growing.
Okay.
So
and
if you can drive sheep, I'll come see me. I'll take you.
I can paint.
Oh, okay.
What do you see as your future employees?
You know, there's a limited number of marine contractors in the area, and there is
one other.
Yes, yes, and I think there's going to be a demand here. I've talked to the National Park Service. They have 8. They're expecting at least one large project for the next 8 years out here in the islands because all the docks were pretty much destroyed in the storms last September. So I think there's opportunities to maybe double in size, and then there is. I'd always maintain my headquarters here. That's the idea. But there is the federal government, the Corps of Engineers just granted $72 million over the next 3 years in Duluth Harbor to do cleanup and stuff. So I would keep my headquarters here, but if I were to expand, there would be an opportunity to maybe do work down there also. So it would just involve a little longer commute because everybody that works for me lives right here in the community.
So let me understand, with the shift you've done in the design, there is, what will be going on here then? There will still be repair of heavy equipment?
No, not heavy equipment, but if I
I mean,
fit
would
my
they-
boat in there, I would bring my boat in there, just like anybody else could bring their boat into their garage to work on it. Just mine's a little bigger, but
So,
we
so the
could.
big industrial garage door is needed for?
We would probably have to have a bigger door to get in through it, yep.
No, I mean, what is the purpose? I mean, it looks like a garage for
Right.
big things.
I'd like to bring my boats in there. The United States Coast Guard has just come out with something called Subchapter M. All vessels in the next year have to be compliant, and that's gonna require some upgrades to my boat, and I would much rather bring that inside to work on than to have these guys out there. I haven't spent a whole winter here, but I'm sure it's no fun in January, February, March to be outside
Lovely.
working. Just
Lovely all the
lovely.
time.
So the idea, and part of that also is, Adam Stolfer came all the ways down to Michigan to work for my restoration company last winter to stay busy. I don't want people that have to come work for one of my other companies out of state. If I could have a building where they could do light repairs inside and work on my boat or tinker with stuff, that keeps all indoors. That would keep people, if they could work on my boat or do things like that, it keeps them here in the community and with their families.
And what would be your plans eventually for all this unused land? You have an acre and a half, and it looks like you're using about an acre with this plan.
Yeah,
So what would be your long-term?
We would put a green belt of some sort over there, and then, I gotta look at what happens in the future. I mean, there might be an opportunity to maybe put something else that can, meets up with the marina, waterfront zoning, so there might be another project in the future. We'll have to look at how this goes and how everything else works out.
Okay. I think that's about all my questions.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions, Mr. Dornberg?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'd like the confirmation on the height of the building.
It probably would, well, obviously it's gonna meet the zoning requirements. We'll have to go before planning commission to do the fine tuning and everything on it. But the building right now, I believe is around 24 feet tall, something like that. At least the office section is.
And you said that you're now converting the second story into a residence.
Right,
And that's the
me-
second story of the
Mhm.
office portion.
The bottom, the first floor will be the office part, the residence will be the second part, and then the garage would be for putting my toys and boat and what have you in there.
Mary, do you have any other questions?
No, just the relationship to the door to the height of the building.
Any other questions for Mr. Dornberg at this time? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Tom?
Part of your compromise is that you will be storing your equipment and materials on Mr. Pipgrass's property.
That's correct.
That just sold recently, so it was available last year when you started looking. Is there some reason you didn't want to purchase it last year?
I had no idea it was available.
Oh, you didn't? Oh.
No, I didn't get it till late in the year last year, and I didn't find out about it until.
All right, interesting, okay.
Mhm.
That would have been, honestly.
It would have been ideal.
A lot nicer.
Say if they lay $1 short, whatever, but I wouldn't want to, yeah.
Do our best to prevent it. Yes, Linda?
But if this is primarily an office building with a residence, it needs to be at that site?
Yeah, I think it does, for a lot of reasons. The proximity to the marina helps a lot. I've got trucks coming up and down there all day now delivering stone and what have you in the summer months, so people can drop their weight tips, pick them up. As far as like going down to do maintenance on the dock, or I haven't talked to the city in detail about it, but if I could go down there and work on some things on the dock and stuff, then, that's a possibility, or go over to the yard to work. It's just a nice central location, and it dovetails in with what's going on at the marina, what's going on at the full dock now, and everything. It's a perfect location for us. The city has really worked to try and find another spot. This is the spot. They worked exhaustively to try and find the right spot for me. And this is the way we try.
As for Mr. Dornberg's comment, yes, Scott Kluber and I worked very hard and thought of every possibility, and then some.
And thank you.
What we might be able to do to accommodate everyone. The county will not grant us any land. The land that they will give us allows to demonstrate how that would work. The land they maybe would give up is not suitable. Yes, Mary.
So again, talking about suitable land, you're looking at that land there, but it's sitting on basically a serious hill. And we've already heard from the owners and people from the marina that there's already water problems in the storage buildings below. So understanding that one would not dive into an environmental impact until you're assured of the land. But given the case that it is not sound enough for your building, what do you do?
You know, I haven't been here long enough to know for sure, but that looks like it was prepared and there's a building there at one time. The site looks like there was something sitting there at one time. As far as stormwater goes, if it meets the county requirements for requiring storm drains, then we would have to put storm drains in, and whatever's required. That's all things I think will get hashed out, and if the approval is given, that stuff will be worked out with the site planning committee and with county permitting. The county has the final say on whether it needs storm drains or what have you, based on the size of the building and the impact.
And knowing there's a problem there already.
Well, I don't know how serious the problem is, but maybe the answer is to put a swell behind there, behind that building to catch the water.
Any other questions? We could have Mr. Dornberg up afterwards. I'd like to hear from the other group first, and then the city administrator has some comments you'd like to make. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
So,
Thank you.
who would like to speak, Mr. Carlson or Mr. Anderson or Mr.
This makes the comments. I've already inundated everyone with enough paperwork, so I'm just gonna stick to a few comments from tonight. I did receive a phone call from Sherry Grant before tonight's meeting, indicating that she wanted to come to tonight's meeting, but was not able to do so. But that the Condos Association was very concerned on this project as how it would impact their property, and noted that this intersection of Omaha and Central is what she called the crossroads of tourism for the city. So I just note that, given that she was not able to make it.
Which condo association is that?
That would be, what do they call it? I did this condo association. This is six
across, and a parallel with the event center beyond the hotel.
Oh,
The
okay.
condos that.
So
Yeah.
Brown was the 6 units there.
So you made this comment, is that one person thing, or did they have a meeting and that was passed as a resolution?
She indicated that they had a meeting that was discussed at their association. She called me late this afternoon with that, thank you, so. With respect to the housing stock, I think it's been very well noted in a couple of studies that it is an issue. I agree that you cannot build new construction for $92 a square foot. Personal belief, I think there's some other issues with respect to Boomtown that particular unit is not selling. With respect to Pearl Beach's revised plan, indoor boat storage, as it sounds that it's going to be now, is prohibited in this zoning area. I know that there's boat storage below, but that's technically non-conforming as well. With respect to both Pearl Beach and American Hotels offers of purchase, or letters out there seeking to enter into purchase agreements, I think that the council needs to consider some terms that would address what has been offered by both parties. Such as any jobs guarantees, any noise restrictions, pollution restrictions, and insurance that the construction is going to occur. This should be addressed in a purchase agreement and in a deed restriction. Max and I were talking earlier today with the new state law with respect to conditional use permitting. Conditional use permits are almost permits now, because you basically have no ability to deny a conditional use permit. Technically you can, but it is very, very hard to deny a conditional use permit. So if the council wants to restrict future use, don't rely upon zoning and conditional use permitting, because that is not a good way of doing that anymore. Those are the comments I had. Again, I think most of our positions been set forth in the previous letters.
Any questions for Mr.?
Yes, I have some questions, John. What is the plan? Because at one point it was 6 duplexes per lot, and now there's talk of tourist cabins. So what is the intended use of lot? They want lot 48, and the latest letter said they would first develop lot 47, which is quite small.
I think
So do you have an idea?
Yeah, I got a little bit muddied up. So, along, I guess it'd be the north side of the lot that was just purchased, it would be.
Which lot?
I guess
Just
in between the marina buildings and the harbor view.
Right, the harbor
area
view
there. Yes,
purchase.
there's, right, so there is some room in there to put in, some small cabins that would be pointed towards the lake.
Okay.
And then you can, up above on lot 48, put in condos or duplexes, and you could, whether or not they would be condoized or not later on.
So are you envisioning, or is the hotel company envisioning this for summer residents, full-time year-round residents?
I think the duplexes would be full-time.
Mhm.
Obviously snowbirds would be in there. But along the other area, doesn't have a lot number on it. I think it used to be lot 45 or
Right, right, I
41.
know what you're talking about, next to the parking lot.
Right, those would be more of a short term.
Okay. And then what's their time frame?
Well, same thing with Mr. Dornberg's issue, all of this has to go through.
If the sale went through, are you looking at 6 months, a year?
I think the construction season's gonna have to be next year for everyone.
Sure, yeah.
It's coming to a rapid closing.
Yeah, but that would mean within a year, year and a half, something would be sold.
Yep, you can spend the winter getting approvals and permits.
Mhm. Any further development on their part on the number of units? I mean, if they started on lot 47, that's a small piece, so.
I don't know where that came in the paper. I noticed that there was a comment
something
that,
about-
that it was gonna start with lot 47 and then go to 48. I don't know where that came from, but I think it makes sense to start with 48 and then go to 47.
If I'm not incorrect, I think that was an email you sent us, or the email that Mr. Wilberg and Mr. Anderson sent us. I just reread it today. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I think it makes more sense to do 48 and then 47.
But do you have any, say in that? So I know you don't think it makes sense, but does it matter what we think makes sense for these 47, 48 right now? We don't have a site plan that shows any of this going on, right?
Right, I think the plan commission could certainly weigh in on that. I don't know that it makes a huge bit of difference to the city per se, but as long as it gets built, right?
Right. Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Carlson?
I have one, a concern that was brought to me. Since there are no concrete plans, has your clients bought any other property in local area here with the promise or intention of developing it that they haven't followed through on?
I have, no. I know, they own other property, but not for development. But, I'm more to say.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Okay. Although we have the possibility of a closed session discussion. The city administrator and I have discussed this. We don't see a reason for closed session because the price is the price right now. And that any comments and questions about who city council would like to sell to should be in open session. And so the public knows what our thinking is, and everyone is aware of how this will work. So, Scott, do you want to make a comment?
Just to bring everyone up to speed, from where we were at the last meeting when we went through this, our objective was to look at any alternatives for the Pearl Beach project. We had met with private property owners, we met with Bayfield County. Bayfield County was very interested in working with us to try to find a solution. The area that they have available and we're willing to work with us is not a viable building site. It is too far away from utilities. It is an area that would require fill and leveling, and the existing level spot is not large enough to accommodate the Pearl Beach project. So they were very eager to work with us and willing to listen to our concern, but ideally, if we were going to take a portion of the highway garage property, that is not within Bayfield County's plans at this time. We have discussed with various property owners, Mr. Pipgrass, and yes, had things been reversed by 6 months or so, things could have turned out different, but that is not how it worked. We were finishing up selling Mr. Pipgrass's property when Mr. Dornberg came on the scene. And that's, timing is always bad. Nonetheless, we discussed that. They have worked out a deal to accommodate Mr. Dornberg's outside activities on his property. We have to put that all down in writing for us, I believe. And we have worked very hard to discuss the zoning requirements. I will disagree with Mr. Carlson's assessment. The garage is an accessory use that is an allowable use at that property. The boat storage, if it was a primary use for indoor boat storage, like the boat storage buildings, yes, that is not allowed in that area. Although open boat storage is allowed, I think that's an error in the zoning code that should be corrected. So that's that is my opinion on that matter. So we've worked hard to accommodate the concerns that the Hotel Association has brought forward. They were concerned about the view, they were concerned about noise. We've worked to eliminate those concerns. We've done this, and yet they still object to this project. I am not clear as to why. So I believe that Mr. Dornberg has gone through a great amount of preparation. I believe that he is ready to go with this project, and I strongly recommend for the financial health of the city, for jobs for the community, for retaining residents in our area, that you accept Pearl Beach proposal.
Okay, how would city council like to proceed? Are there any questions, comments you'd like to make? Yes, Mary.
I guess I'll start. For me, Pearl Beach sounded very good when it was first proposed here. Of course, the land for me is not where I want them to be. I still do not want them to be there. I do understand jobs, like many have talked. Joe talked earlier. I came here 40 some years ago. Between as an employee of the city and on council with the city planning commission, the city has worked very, very hard to clean up the mess that years before have given the lakefront. Lakefront, Lakeview, I don't want to go into the different words. A bigger building like that, to me, sets a tone for that area that we've worked really hard on trying to, for lack of another word, but in quotations, clean up. I come from the East Coast, I've traveled up and down from there. I know what it's like to lose property like that. I feel like a big, square, brownstone building in that area will open up a Pandora's box to other arguments that could be made for other types of buildings like that. We've understood for many years that manufacturing won't come here, yet I keep starting to hear manufacturing, we'll do manufacturing. We never will. I never will. We won't. It may be said that I'm in the tourism business. I am personally. I work for the chamber. I make that very clear. I wear two different hats. I wear that one and I wear this one at City Council. They are very far between. I don't agree on either stage a lot of times. I look at the experience we've had with the hotel. They came in and they bought a losing hotel, a pit of a hotel. They invested in redoing every room. They bought locally. They hired locally. The steak pit was certainly dwindling. They picked up the steak pit. It's been said that, and from this table, well, I don't know how much money they could be making down there, but it doesn't look busy. These are people that understand that that business in their present projection that building will be holding its own. It's been an asset to the city because we don't have places for weddings, which keep people in town. We don't have places for events, which they've brought. They invested across the street in that multi-apartment complex. We've seen the success that they've made to date of a losing chunk of property. They have proven themselves, they've proven the investment. I don't know anything about Pearl Beach other than that was what has come here to the table. I think it would be a worthwhile business in the area, but again, I'm adamantly opposed to that location. And I look at what the future could be. People have said that the comprehensive plan, it is a plan. They bought that property with the idea of our comprehensive plan. And now it seems like we're going back to here, it's zoned correctly right now. I don't want spot zoning. I don't want to go in reverse. I just feel like we do have an identity on the lake. And was it Ms. Kermalis that spoke? Yes. There is an emotion attached to the lake, and 6 to a dozen jobs are wonderful, great paying jobs. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The long term for me is building mixed use. No, I guess I'm not making it very clear other than I oppose the position of that property there. And I'm very impressed with the hotel people and what they've done and what they expect to do. I've made it very clear to them that I've been upset with them holding their cards so close to the chest. I think now they're stepping out of that, that quietness that they've approached us before or sat with us before. They have plans. I don't see that this plan for Pearl Beach is so great a site plan that the hotel people couldn't come up with a plan in short order.
Any other comments?
Yes. I have to disagree respectfully. I really don't see how expensive duplexes help our current residents. I just don't see the need for it. This is a very good opportunity, one that does not come along very often. This could be something that we could have here as far as Pearl Beach construction for decades, providing jobs to residents. That area, I haven't been alive 40 years yet, but I've been here. I was raised here. I know that area is, well loved, but it has a coal dock. That's a commercial dock. We just approved possibly a tax increase to the people to help restore that as a coal dock. That seems commercial. The harbor, I don't see how A marine construction business doesn't fit in that area. The harbor is right there. The coal dock is right there. And there is no other spot for them. And so I totally agree. If there was a great spot, excellent. But there isn't. And I think if we pass on this opportunity for duplexes, I think that's a very big mistake. So, thanks.
Any other comments?
I guess I can't quite understand why there's no other spot that close to the cul-de-sac.
There isn't.
I know. There's no other spot that close to
You
the
could
cul-de-sac.
find us one,
Wait,
take it.
Richard, may I finish?
Right here.
Thank you.
I'm
I
not
understand
you.
that. That's what I'm getting at. I understand there's no other spot that close to the cul-de-sac. But if this is an office with a residence and an area to indoor store boats, I don't comprehend why it needs to be so close to the cul-de-sac and why it can't be in another location in our city. Our city is the cul-de-sac. He's got his equipment right there. He can do his business in another location. That's where my brain can't. Why the fixation on that exact spot? He just needs access to the cul-de-sac. His business can be 5 blocks away, I would think. I mean, I don't understand why that won't work. I think the fact that whatever goes in there, someday the view is going to be different. But what do we want the view to be? A metal building, the side of a metal building. That's with some brown work on it and a big door, or what will enhance the long-term diverse development of the land? What will encourage the type of development we've been trying to lead to for many, many years? People have mentioned tonight, well, it fits in with what's there. The county garage is there. That's kind of been a big hindrance to the development of the area into anything nicer than sort of garage type buildings. That's my comment.
Jen.
Unless you wanna go first, I'll let it go after you.
Okay. I'd like to respond to as far as how the proximity issue would have to do with the hauling of the boats and proximity of getting boats into the garage. That's not something that we want to be hauling on city streets for a great amount of distance.
How often are they hauled in and hauled out? Once a year?
Right. Probably in and out.
But not on a weekly basis?
No.
Okay, once every several months.
Right, but you're using the marine trailer and heavy equipment to get it in. So, and I do want to point out that when the city had last discussed the Omaha property, it was not able to come to an agreement when we had the housing proposal for that property. We had a Cedar Court plan. We had done some very detailed planning on that property. And one of the iterations of that plan was for commercial use of that very parcel with the possibility of apartments. So I quite honestly don't see anything that the Pearl Beach proposal is not in compliance with that reiteration, which was the last time we had looked at the Omaha property. So I'm really getting confused by the council myself as to what exactly are you looking at? Because this is becoming a very difficult job to do if we are not being consistent here.
Jen wanted to speak first.
Well, first of all, I think I just appreciate the conversation because that's what our council is known for, is being civil and being able to listen to each other, because this isn't an easy subject. And we try to make it black and white, and we try to make it an easy subject. So if you listen to the compassion of what everybody has for this piece of property, I know we're frustrated. I'm frustrated. I've been in council. I've been here for 20 years. We've been, we've been talking about this area. I know that it's compassionate for everybody. So I'm just asking everybody for patience so that we can really make the right decision. So that's my first comment, because I frankly don't love to vote in a controversial situation about, pitting, like, this is better than this and this. I mean, the bottom line is both of these investments are wonderful for our community. So first of all, I want to say thank you for that. And I don't want to say that one's better than the other and all this jazz, because we can go back and forth and talk about what the benefits of each are. The bottom line is they're both very important to our community, and we are business friendly, and it's a shame that we're pitting them against each other. So I'd like to say that. I have spent a lot of time thinking about this, talking to the constituents in my district. I get, everybody's saying, oh yeah, both of this looks good, this looks good. So I'm just not comfortable with making that decision to pit one against the other. So I'm still trying to come up with some type of a solution, and I understand there's not other properties, I get that. I mean, if you want to talk straight up, well, one's $10,000 more than the other. If you want to talk about dollars, is it worth $10,000 to have, that brings people in versus some condo rentals? These are it's just like comparing, it's very difficult to compare here. So the council members are being put in, I think, an awkward position in order to, and I understand that's why we're here and we're elected. I'm willing to make decisions. I just would appreciate the conversation a little bit more. So some size and some different comments. I just hope that we can have some more discussion on it. I guess that one of the things that my main concern is I'm talking the same line with Mary, is that as a council member, I look for the long-term benefit of this community. And one of the things that I agree upon that we have done over time has chipped away at different things so that we don't have, I think, an overall vision for that area. And so, I'm a little concerned about visuals of putting this type of a building right there. If we are going to put some other things on the other side of the street, in terms of blockage and what you're looking at. I understand that there's a blue pole building right across the street. That's not what I would prefer to be there. But at some point, somebody in the council approved that blue pole building down there. Just like we approved the two marina buildings, one for, personal boat storage. So I just like to take consideration on what we're doing and take our time to make sure it's the long-term benefit of our community. But that said, I don't even know where to go. So it's not a decision taken lightly. It's not something people on council are not business friendly. We're just looking for the long term. So I'm asking for people's patience and a little bit of respect and empathy for some of the jobs that we have to do up here. And thank you to Scott and the mayor for looking for alternatives. I would hope that we could, I don't know, is there any other options? And my other question is, are we both completely comfortable that both need the comprehensive plan? There would be no amendments or anything added. Okay, thank you.
You don't have to amend the comprehensive plan, it's whether we're changing the zoning.
Changing the zoning.
Nuremberg, then there would not be a zoning change, it meets the zoning requirements. Aaron, you want to speak?
Yeah, sorry to keep talking, but, as a resident here, we are a town of what ifs, right? What if this were to happen? Can you just imagine this, picture this? This is a real offer right now to put something, which I think would be really great. And we haven't even seen a site plan in the hotel. So this, and even if it were, I still don't agree with the idea of going toward housing for that particular lot. There are other lots for housing all over the town. There are residential zones. So I feel like, this is one of the first concrete things that come along in a while that we could really benefit from. So, thanks.
Anyone? Yes, Karen.
Back in December, I decided to run for city council. And one of the first things I realized was that there were two groups that I was out of touch with. I returned to Washburn after having been away for 55 years, although I was born here. And I'd been here for a couple of years, and I realized that both businesses and young families were the two groups that I needed to become in touch with. So I set about the process of interviewing businesses and interviewing young families. And I'd like to talk just briefly about interviewing young families. Uniformly, the three things I heard from those young families were these things. Number one, more recreation and planned programs for their kids. Now, we've just created a Parks Committee, and their job or their charter is not to set up a recreation program for kids, but by just the work that they're going to be doing, I think that we're, at least a little closer to addressing some of the things for kids. We're going to be looking at the ball fields, we're going to be looking at the parks, some recreation kinds of things. So I don't say that we solved that issue, but at least we've made a start. The other two issues that I again heard from young families were jobs and housing, which brings us full circle to where we are right now tonight. We're talking about jobs, we're talking about housing. There's no question that both are needed in our community. We heard a comment about the housing that's available, a house available for $67,000. We know that the housing stock in our community is old. Much of it is deteriorating, and I wish we could figure out a way that we could do some rehab on existing housing, in addition to some new housing, new affordable housing, because we can't have our current stock crumble without shoring it back up and doing some rehab. So housing is clearly an issue. But I tend to agree with some of the comments that first and foremost, we need to be an entity that provides jobs so people come or stay, and housing will follow. The job of being on the council, I've described it as being able to juggle. And not to say that lightly, because it's an important juggle. There are good comments on both sides of this issue. And, I could vote with good conscience on either, for either of these offers. But at the end of the day, I am in support of jobs that are right now here today. It may not fit exactly with what we want, but it is an entity that has some potential for growth, and it fits in with who we are in terms of being concerned about the lake, being concerned about shore, being concerned about preserving docks and the Apostle Islands National Parks. So, it's not all that outside the realm of some of the things that we value. We can't, I think that there are adequate locations for housing development, and as I said, rehab of existing housing is also critically important. But I think that we have an opportunity to ensure some jobs, an opportunity to ensure a lease on our coal dock, which is part of the requirement of our grant, at least to make available to put having commercial leases. I think this is a win-win for the city, and hopefully our community will see this as a win-win also. Thank you.
We've heard from 5. I'd like to hear from the other 2. Yes, John.
As it's been mentioned, this is a very difficult decision for us to make now. One of the questions I asked, some may think it was irrelevant or after the fact now, but I thought at the last meeting, Mr. Dornberg said he approached the city a year ago. Well, a year ago, the 2 industrial park lots were still available at that time. Why he wasn't told about it, I don't know. So by asking that question, I hope we can learn from this mistake then, if a mistake was made and they were not offered that at the time. But, we have a business that wants to come in, and I would like to see businesses come in such as Pearl Beach. But we also have a business that has been established now and proven they are willing to put money into our community. They've invested, it's probably over a couple million now. They've proven they're committed to this community. Now, Pearl Beach's reasoning for wanting that property was the proximity to the coal dock. And I thought it was so they could move their equipment and materials. And if that concern is taken care of now by leasing or renting space from Mr. Fitzgrass, well, they're within the proximity that they need to be then for that. And I know most of the comments are in favor of Pearl Beach, but as I said, the hotel has proven, I think, that they're committed to this community. And I agree with Ms. Barnes that if Pearl Beach is just looking for office space and moving a boat maybe once a year, there has to be some other property within Washburn that they could buy.
Thank you.
Jeremy,
Sure. I can't remember a more difficult decision that I've had to make sitting here. So fortunately, I've had a lot of people, my constituents, reach out to me, and they were overall in favor of Pearl Beach. Some of the comments they made were that we're never going to have a perfect solution. There's never going to be the golden unicorn that shows up here and solves all our problems, but this is a great solution to some of our problems. Another one said that they really enjoy seeing a lively working shoreline. An example of that is every day I'm in Bayfield, I work up there. I spend the day, my lunch, watching the ferry boats come and go, watching the Possum Island cruises come and go. It's like to see a vibrant working shoreline, and that, I believe, Pearl Beach would add to this. But, and the last one I'll share is that someone needs to have a job to be able to buy a house, and this seems like it's going to provide jobs to our community. So saying that, I will make a motion that we accept Pearl Beach's offer for lot 48 for $25,000.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and second. In favor of Pearl Beach's proposal. You want to say? Sure. Scott, from that physical look.
I favor the motion strongly. However, I would suggest that the contingencies, as I have recommended, be that this offer is contingent upon a final approved site plan, that a time frame is established on construction, and that we also receive a copy of the agreement between Pearl Beach and Mr. Fitzgrass.
I'm completely happy including that in my motion.
Karen, do you agree?
Yes, I do.
Are we able to have a little bit more discussion?
Absolutely, this
Okay.
is the time.
So I've heard several times, the discussion on the proximity and that it, Pearl Beach is not to be in this location if the outside yard is over at Fitzgrass and if there's other places to go in our community. So before I make a decision, I guess I'd like to brainstorm that a little bit, not knowing all the stuff with our new zoning code because it's very complicated. So this size of a building that we're looking at here, what other places in our communities and something like that? Because what I don't want to say is we say that and then it comes back and it's over here. We're like, oh, you don't fit here. No, you don't fit here. So I guess I just want to have a quick brainstorm if there is other locations, just for the sake of it, with that kind of a construction, because once again, like Family Dollar did not pass our planning commission because of the size of that building with the adjacent buildings next to it. So I'd like to have a discussion on that.
So it certainly could not be in our downtown corridor.
Not be in our downtown
Absolutely
corridor,
not, it could not be in our residential districts,
not be in a residential.
could not be in our, could be in an industrial area, but we don't have any land
We have no
there.
space.
It couldn't be in the marina, the lakefront district. It wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be in our C2 or 3 districts, because we just had that issue. Well, it could be in
C2 or C3?
It could potentially be there,
the area which is, Family Dollar was not allowed because it's too large in relationship to the other structures in that area. So that area, that part of the city is out.
well, keeping in mind, this proposed structure is 3,000 square feet smaller than what the proposed Family Dollar.
Okay.
But it was, the idea was in relation to the other buildings, and so it's the determination of the plan commission, how it fits in relation to the adjacent buildings, which if the adjacent buildings are little houses, it is way out of whack. It's an interpretation of the majority of the plan commission is what is going to determine what is allowed.
Okay.
If too large or not. I suppose it could go somewhere along Highway C, maybe. In the larger district, but there's nothing for sale there. But the possibility of running water and sewer up there is not a possibility at all.
Well, if I may respond to that, I believe you can ask Mr. Dornberg the question, but I believe the response is going to be that, I think he is going to want to be hauling his large boats with our travel trailer up Highway C or anywhere through the downtown area.
Okay, I've just heard several comments saying like could be in different locations in our city, and I just wanted to explore that a little bit. I can, like you, see that use is like almost compatible with the marina, and that people do like to see, that kind of a working type environment down by the marina. I can, I can see the point of view on that. So, I could be conscious of vote for either one of these proposals. So, as I said before, I think, and once again, grasping at straws, trying to find a compromise for both locations. So, I understand that we brainstormed that pretty hard, but those are where my questions are going. That's why I asked that question about other locations.
Yes, Mary.
So it's the belief that the marina travel lift will go up that hill?
Hydraulic bunk trailer to carry it up the hill.
Not the travel.
Okay.
That would be a sight.
I know.
It would be quite a sight seeing his boat on your 50,000 pound trailer. That would be quite a sight. Yeah.
Any other?
Just one more comment about the housing. This was brought up by, and I should mention, thanks to everyone for being here, for emailing, it really helps us make decisions when we have the input. I mean, we are a representative body, so as much input as you wish to give, we are always thankful for that. And this came from, I believe, email. When you talk about the or needing housing, that's not affordable housing there. Not for the people that need it. There are many families right now renting because they cannot afford a home. They're not going to be able to afford these new duplexes the way that it sounds like they're wanting to put up condos with, if the lake view is really what everyone is valuing this at. To construct something down there, it's going to be very difficult for current residents, if that's what we're truly trying to help as well. I get wanting more people to come in, but there are many residents right now needing housing, and I don't see this helping them, but I do see this helping Pearl Beach helping, current residents, as well as bringing in maybe others as well, so, again, I just.
Mr. Mulber, are you done?
I'd just like to
Mr.
correct a
Robert,
piece of
yeah.
misinformation. I'm not sure when the gentleman from the Ashland Daily Press got his information, but they're not $200,000 condos. We're looking at putting duplexes up that are very similar to the eightplex that's there, somewhere in that 900 to 1,000 square foot, putting rents somewhere at market based. We've come here, we're not gonna price ourselves out of the market. We've been here for a long time. We wouldn't invest in something that wouldn't fit the needs of the community. We've given openly to every organization in town. Every time a community event wants to use the space down there, we do it gratis. We're community members and have been. We're not gonna come in and put something that's for out-of-towners. We have that where we're at. We feel a big need with that. We bring a lot of business into town and have. And we have created jobs here. And this whole idea that we don't, it's really kind of hard to listen to.
Appreciate that.
In all fairness, no developer is gonna produce a product that no one wants to buy, right? You can build something you think you can sell.
And not your fault that you guys took this stuff from the paper. I totally get that side of it. He did not call John, he did not call me. He did not get that from us.
It may have also been in some earlier communication from John that gave the price.
Maybe gave a total price of per unit, but that does not mean that that's a condo price that we would sell for.
Okay.
That maybe was where the confusion came.
And one population group we mentioned at our previous meeting, maybe it was in the closed session, that is in need of this type of housing are our seniors. There are many, many people in this town who want to stay here, but we have homes that are not built correctly for, they're the bedrooms are all on the second floor. There's shoveling, there's driveways to plow, there's yards to mow. So there is a population group that has come to me in my work and asked, well, where are we gonna go? Where can we live? When we don't want to maintain this home anymore, but we want something like a duplex. We want to stay in Washburn. Right. I know people who live in Bayfield who say, I want to live in Washburn, but I want a new 900 square foot home. Well, that just would be icing on the cake. But I have heard many people voice it. But I do want to thank everyone who sent emails and phone calls and voiced their opinions. It was very, very good to hear from so many folks.
Any council member like to speak? Oh, sorry, Mary.
That's okay. One of the things that we fall into is that Washburn is poor, like many communities. We put together a zoning, we put together a comp plan, be it 10, 11 years old. We're always reacting. We are. And we're never on the offense. We're never, I feel like we never, even in zoning, a business like Pearl Beach never came on our radar. I think some of these things, we need to be broader in our scope, I guess. And I still say we need a long-term plan. We cannot be reactive to anyone that may just come in because we need money. I don't know what the complete answer is for that, but unless things change, we're going to be reacting to anybody that comes knocking on the door. And desperation of money does not mean down the line we need to sell our souls either. So I would say to everyone in the community and the like, what the answer is, I don't know, but we better figure it out.
Well, and I think for folks who are part of the comprehensive planning, you know, we keep talking about housing on this piece of land and some surrounding land, but that really wasn't the vision. If you look at the plans, it was a combination. It had public open space, it had like artist community with businesses below. It was drawing our community and our downtown to people who are just driving by to take a right and go down to our beautiful lakeshore and our marina and our parks. And so we're making it, once again, we're making it black and white where I don't think it is. And you know, Scott, you say that the city council has been confusing, and it's right, and it's because we're being reactive and we have a comprehensive plan, and every time we get something that comes, it doesn't quite fit. It doesn't quite fit what the overall community came up with years ago, and maybe we need to update that. I'm not saying say we need to do some comprehensive plan here. I'm just telling you that the reason this hasn't been easy is because the vision is greater and bigger than just housing there. So we keep talking about housing, and, you know, that's where I'm trying to figure out Pearl Beach and their proposal and how it does start to fit in with what we talked about, drawing people down. It's just kind of a little bit more industrial, commercial than business-like. That for my vision of what I'm taking from the comprehensive plan and from talking to people. And just as a response, in terms of the hotel not, you know, having, bringing in jobs and such, you heard me earlier talk about how both of you have committed to our community, and, you know, it's been several times how the hotel and the owners of, the Old State Pit, now the Harbor View Event Center, have done great things for our community. So I once again want to reiterate that I don't like the idea of pitting these two business opportunities against each other and trying to figure out which one is most valuable. They are both valuable. That's all I have to say.
Jeremy?
I'll just reiterate what you're saying there, Jen, that my motion is not a reflection on the American Hotel Association at all, and that's what is making this an incredibly difficult decision, is because that organization has been nothing but fantastic to the city, and that's why I think it's wrenching us apart, because yes, I go there frequently, I have friends that are employed there, so I hope that the American Hotel Association knows that they are appreciated here, and this is a very difficult decision because of what they've done for our city.
I don't have a vote, and I'm sort of glad. If I was sitting over there like I did for all those years, I would be just as split as every council member is, because both are very good ideas and very good plans. But this is what city councils have to do. You have to make a decision. You can't have both, because both won't work together. They both want the same property, so a decision has to be made. Or I suppose we could not take either of them. Keep going in the future.
And you do get to vote.
So it's difficult, but it's what city councils do, and it's not a reflection on one or the other. It's what you think would work best in the future for Washburn. Karen, do you want to speak?
Yes, in response to both what Jen and Jeremy have said, I too have frequented the event center and am very supportive of having a quality lodging establishment in our community. And I would hope that regardless of how the vote goes on this issue, that the representatives of the American Hotel Association would continue to work with the council about housing. Because if there is, and you have indicated a genuine interest in looking and improving our housing stock, there are locations in our community that may not be exactly what the lot in question has, but could be equally as good for affordable housing, for housing for seniors, for lake views. And I just would urge, again, regardless of how the vote goes, that continue to be something that you would see as a continued contribution to Washburn and would work with the council around that.
Any other person, anyone want to speak?
Well, I just want to make one more comment. It was before my time on the council, but I heard a lot of talk about the Omaha Street project, and there may have been misconceptions about low-income housing, and a lot of people in the community were against low-income housing. Well, it sounds like they want to build some decent housing now, and it sounds like some people are against that now too, so I guess this is a tough decision.
As I was the one who brought the developer to town and wanted to do the project on Omaha Street, I continually tried to put the nail in the coffin that it was going to be anything but low-income housing. It was not ever going to be low-income housing, but no one ever hears that. It was going to be a 40-unit place where 30 were going to be market rate and 10 would be income eligible, because that is what they felt they could build and make money and make its project work, which are building all over the state. This company has done many, many of them. It was not and never would have been low-income housing, and I don't know how many times I have to say that, because this company may come back and try to do that, and it can. Because I think that is a good project and much needed in this case, because it is housing that would be quality housing for seniors and others that is affordable at market rates, at their market rates, let alone the income eligible rates. So, Chairman, did you want to speak? I'm sorry, but that annoys me greatly.
That's why I said there seemed to be a misconception, because that's all I heard was low-income housing.
I know, it was.
And the citizens were against that. Well, now we have some quality housing, and it sounds like people are going the other way now. Well, we don't want that here either.
I want to comment on your comment about that Mr. Dornberg was here a year ago, and we could have offered him that industrial property. We would have loved him to be here a year ago and give it and sell them that industrial property.
I'm pretty sure in the last meeting, he said he approached the city a year ago.
He said he came here last February.
Yeah, it was like 3 months ago, we first came and started talking about this, or what, 4 months ago, 5 months ago.
If he would have, we would gladly have sold him that property. We would not be where we are tonight. Scott, did you want to comment?
Well, to clarify that, Mr. Dornberg's offer came at the February council meeting. And I remember, I went back and looked at the minutes of that. We were completing the conditional use permit for Mr. Pipgrass at that very same meeting for his property. I first met Mr. Dornberg, I would say, in October or November of 2017. That was when he had initially contacted me about the broke down palace for winter work to rehab that building. Not for this particular project, but through that conversation, we began to have conversations of what was available, but we were already in negotiation with the sale with the ironworks and Mr. Pipgrass at that time. So I did not feel it was appropriate to offer property that we were already in negotiation with.
And just for clarification, to me, it's the same conversation that I had when I was on council about the Omaha Street development is what I'm having thoughts here. It's once again, it's the idea that we have that whole area and we were talking about just housing. And once again, I felt, just like I feel today, that that piece of land should not just go to housing. So we talked about that there was 7 acres or 9 acres there, and then we would start with the housing, and then maybe that other stuff, artist community with businesses to draw people down the lake, would come later. And I wasn't willing to take that risk. So I was not, at that time, in approval of that housing. Just like right now I'm struggling, once again, long-term vision, getting our community down, getting folks down to the lake, having a mixed use down there, trying to figure out what's the best. So I don't think anybody's against housing. Right. It's kind of right now we're like looking at, once again, we're being reactive. We have this piecemeal, this whole area. And so it's very difficult when you don't have a vision and you're being reactionary, because I don't feel like total housing fits it. I feel like if you look, once again, if you look at the plans of what the comprehensive plan, I understand they're 10 years old, but I think if you went around and you asked your community of what they really wanted down there, it's kind of this whole mixed use kind of thing of trying to get people down to our lakefront. And does that include housing? Yes. Could that involve some kind of a business like this? Probably. But when you piece it together, it's very difficult to make sure that you're going to have that whole overall flow and not giving away your lakeshore to, you know, folks building back there and looking at a metal building right now. You know, those metal buildings of the pole barns from the marina are like, I actually stood down there today and tried to figure out how tall they were and how much taller this metal building was going to be for the view. So it's once again the overall piece of property and the value of that piece of property to our community for the future. Just not trying to sell ourselves short. So I guess I disagree that it was just housing that people were against it. Okay. Because that was not the whole story.
This is your time to speak. If there's no other comments, it's time for a vote. Are you ready to take a vote?
Yes.
This will be a roll call vote so that people know where everyone stands. We want to be as open and clear.
And I'll just say I'm disappointed. We haven't had a roll call vote like this where we had to put the council members pitted like this since I've been on
I think
council.
this is an important issue.
I agree that it's an important issue. I mean, I guess, I think it's a shame. So, just stating that in terms of, we've always been able to find compromises, we've been able to find different things that works. And this is the first time since I've sat on council that it's like, hey, make the decision so that everybody knows. And I'm willing to make the decision, I'm just saying that typically we can find a solution.
How is it different in a voice vote that you don't know who voted what?
Oh, I'm fine with the roll, I'm just saying the fact that we're calling the decision, that's all. So, it's fine.
Then how are you criticizing me for calling a decision?
I'm not
when there's-
criticizing you, it's
There's
the
a
fact that
decision
these
to
are,
be made.
I'm just saying the fact that these are both on the agenda and that we have to choose one over the other. And I guess
What's your
we've been,
solution?
I suppose we've looked hard enough for other solutions. So I know we've looked at the county building, I guess we've talked to private citizens. I'll make the call, but I'm just saying that it's,
I'm throwing out, anyone have a solution here, that you have to choose between one or the other. If anyone has a solution, I want to hear it. Because I've wrestled with this from the beginning, and I'm torn, and I see what it's doing to our community, and I don't like it. And I just want it, I'd love to have both and both be happy, but it doesn't seem that that is going to happen.
okay,
So the choice has to be made, or the other possibility, just to be open, is you could table it.
I'm not saying I want to table it, I'm just saying that I want to make sure that we have looked for all possibilities. And I hear a lot of groaning in the audience, but you're not up here, and so just have a little bit of patience. I'll stay here till midnight, I got all the time in the world to try to figure this out. And I just want to make sure I do my due diligence that this has been 1 month, right? 1 month on the council. I got my packet a week ago, knowing that they're both on this, like this, you know, so that's all, it's fine. I'll make the decision, I can do that, and just wanna make sure that we've done our due diligence and explored all other opportunities. When we had a similar thing going on with the cell tower, we did the same thing, right? We looked really hard, and I just wanna make sure that we've done that, and if we feel like we've done that, that's fine.
Mary?
So, one thing we haven't talked about, and I'm just saying, is there any chance of the corner of Central and Omaha, which would put a kitty corner from you, but it would match in the look of a brownstone to the brownstones on the corners?
The problem with that area is the city does not own that property, it is owned by a private individual.
All the way up to the Omaha corner?
Yes, that is owned by the Woodwards. I have spoken with the Woodwards about that property. Another problem with that area is that it would require a lot of, what was those, Scott, we had issues with that?
The Woodward property,
Yes. One, it's a lot smaller.
it is a lot
A
smaller.
lot smaller. I don't know if this building was put on there. It's only 1/3 of an acre.
I didn't know.
And it's still, you're just moving it from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill. Personally, I don't have a problem with being kitty corner to my property. Not at all. If that would work.
Yeah.
But we can't.
Yeah, in my head, we owned it.
I went that
In your
route.
dream.
If he had that property and had his full operation there, because why would, if he's moved some of it off the lower part as a concession to, in hopes of working out something with the hotel group. He wanted to do everything he wanted to do in that property would have to be rezoned.
Right, and I was not thinking, I was thinking about the changes made to this point and a very quick boogie over to where he's going to store.
We wouldn't have, well,
Maybe a block away.
Mr. Carlson,
Hello, long-term lease on the marina.
we investigated that possibility. And the marina makes money by using that property for boat storage.
There's no room to put up.
According to the marina operator and the president, if I could say, we have the president of the Harbor Commission right here. I want you to make a comment, sir.
Looking at it long-term, at this point in the wintertime, the marina is pretty well full of boats for storage. Long-term, we don't want to give up that property because we don't know what's going to come to us over the next 20 years. So we're landlocked right now. There's no growing in the marina, so giving up property there is not a good thing.
The marina makes quite a bit of money on the boat storage on their flat ground there, which is why they have the money to kick in for the coal dock restoration.
Including that place where the guy came in, he wanted to build at the far end closest to.
We have the same issue of the easement of the utilities going under there. So we'd be building over the utilities, which is why
I
the
thought
other
we were
person.
gonna bypass the utilities with that storage at the time.
That was a smaller building.
Scott, did you want to say something?
Just on the storage boats, yeah, we estimate that would be a loss of about, grand total loss of about $20,000 in revenue per year. So we have looked at that. I will throw out the only other, solution that I would see along Central Avenue would be on the north side of, Mr. Anderson's building, the former county forestry garage, as opposed to the south side.
So if you're going down Central, not the Woodward's property, but the property we're moving out was requesting to purchase. Is that the area you're referring to?
Correct.
That land there.
Can you describe it a little bit more for me?
It's on the corner of Omaha Street and Central Avenue.
Okay. On the
lake
corner,
side.
the same side, right there, the section where the old forestry building is, on the other side of it.
No, on this side, as you're going down the hill,
Right,
on the
right,
Bakersfield Street
right.
side.
On the, as you're coming down, it's right there on the right.
Correct.
Just at the corner of Omaha, yeah.
Correct, where the sign is right now.
Right. Right.
See?
I was talking about just where Scott pointed out.
That is a possibility. But it's
How,
not,
and that's part of the big 8 acres. So
Correct.
that as much as he needed could be chunked off.
correct, but you have that issue of, if you think the whole thing is unsightly, if that's your issue, it's just moved up the hill, and down the hill.
Just
Still the
whether,
same
where
building.
it is in the line of vision.
So, well, Mr. Dornberg, would that be something that you might consider?
I'd like to go look at it, and if that's a consideration. Are there gonna be objections there once we go through that? Are we starting all over again? Because this has been since February, so.
Can I just ask a
Yes,
question about that?
yes.
That, isn't that lot, I mean, the plan B to sell the entire lot for development? This would just be a
That's
piece of that lot?
possibility.
Okay.
We don't have a specific idea yet.
Okay.
The Cedarburg Court design that you see on the signs down there, they were the ones who recommended we shift from retail and housing to purely housing because they saw greater demand for housing, and they said it would pull business away from Bayfield Street.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were saying that it could be, but what they were proposing could be done in segments by different developers at different times.
Okay.
So the whole piece doesn't have to go
Have to
to
go
one
in.
purchaser.
Okay,
We've
thank you.
not had any proposals by a single developer. We welcome them by a single developer to it with a plan that would be workable for the entire project. I'm sure you'd be welcome to listen to that. Scott?
This property is a higher elevation. it overlooks from that site, you can overlook and you would see basically over the rest of the buildings of that area. So when the plan was put together, that was actually the spot where housing was thought to be preferred
Right,
because it has
It has a
view.
view.
Very nice.
Right, yeah,
I can attest to that.
right. Okay, thanks for the discussion, appreciate it.
That area is zoned what? Well, if Mr. Dormer wanted to do his full project there, it's not zoned for that.
It would be the same zoning as it is now, so if he did what he is proposing now, it would fit there as well.
Yes,
Mr. Carlson may not agree with what I have to say here, but the reason that we bought that forestry building was to remove industry from this block, from this piece of land. So I would not be in favor of putting this piece on the corner of Omaha and Central, which I'd say Mr. Carlson, because his argument is that, you know, we're doing that by putting somewhere on lot 48, we're doing the same things. But I feel that Central and Harbor View lot 48 is a better choice for this piece.
How would you like to proceed, Mr.?
Ready to vote? I think it would be a good idea to hear the motion one last time before we do.
To accept their Pearl Beach offer as stated in the memo, including Mr. Kluger's contingencies on site plan, time frame, and agreement with Jeff Pipgrass property for lease.
Do you want to open there? A couple people have raised their hands in the audience. Is there anyone want to open the floor for public comment? Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion to open the floor.
I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think, Robert, you were first. Please stand up
Yeah.
and speak loudly.
And there's people that would like to hear it, so.
Speak into the microphone.
Okay, I will. Kent 301 West Fifth Street, Washburn. What I'd like to understand clearly is if the council votes to accept Mr. Dornberg's proposal, as stated currently right now, what exactly are American Hotel's options? What can you do? What would you do? In other words, if this goes through and Mr. Dornberg's proposal is accepted, okay, where does that put you? What would you do? What would you not do?
In regards to?
In residential development.
One of the challenges with, one of the things that zoning does is helps provide kind of a set of rules and future planning when people come and look to invest in an area. And when we came here, one of the things that we thought was very positive was that there had been plans and some zoning in place. And it allows you to kind of plan and grow. One of the challenges is with how the city changes and reacts to things that come through. And our understanding of the zoning was, for lack of a better term, industrial would stay east of Central. That corridor between 2nd Avenue, Central Avenue, Omaha South was going to be reserved for some type of mixed use, whether that's public amenities, public improvements, a combination of housing, some type of shops, basically an extension of that Main Street corridor down to the marina. Given that when you make an investment of millions of dollars over the course of the last, most of it in the last 3 years, but over the course of 5 years, and you feel that when you've invested significantly in an area that's supposed to remain more for those types of use. And now across from Central, adjoining our property, which is established, and an established business that literally brings in millions of dollars in economic activity, now it's okay to have this type of industrial use next to it. It certainly makes you nervous to move forward with anything, because it just feels that we've deemed at one point, this stuff goes here, this stuff goes here, okay, we know the rules. We have approached the city, we have brought up the discussion of what about public spaces that connect the downtown to the waterfront going through that area. That could include walking trails, biking trails, those types of things. Even some parking so that people, when they come through, can stop here and connect the Main Street businesses. There's an empty restaurant on the end of town. There's a building here that the city, I think, has close to $250,000 into that they can't give away. I'm very, very concerned that if the city doesn't find some way to stop and hold visitors, as well as bring Mr. Dornberg's businesses into town so that everybody can be here, that's going to have a significant impact on the tax base, because you're basically saying right now that it's okay that we don't have a plan to bring businesses to town to attract tourism to stop those dollars, which equate to about 156. I think the Department of Tourism says every overnight stay brings $156. Every daily visit is about 65. Washburn has a daily car count here in the summer of almost right around 7,200 vehicles per day. It's about 14,000 people a day. All that opportunity moves on through. I agree, I don't think you need to capture all of it, but capturing some of it, I think, is very, very important to the long-term viability and success. When we see a business going here that's industrial, but the Main Street businesses which rely on tourism leaving, you're just trading one for the other. And at some level, those two things do compete. You know, people don't go build hotels, they don't build restaurants next to industrial. When cities have looked to redevelop, and some small town examples are Shell Lake, Spooner, what they do is they take areas in their town that people come through, and they do small shops, they beautify them, they enhance them, they do cleanups. And it's large cities, whether it's Milwaukee's 3rd Ward, Minneapolis North Loop, or on the way up here, Shell Lake and Spooner. We don't understand what's going on now. So if this industrial goes here, and now it's cross Central, is it okay to come north of Harborview? Where are the boundaries now? So when you ask that question, as the boundaries continually change, I guess it's hard to answer. Would we like to do that? Absolutely. Do we have hopes of doing that? For sure. Have we been committed to the community? Every year we've made significant investment. Every single year. We've taken everything we've done, we've spent it in local businesses here, employed local people. I live 2 miles from a Menards. I have stopped at Menards on my way up here and brought 0 items up. Everything we buy at Olson's and the hardware store. So do we want to continue to invest? Yes. Would we like to sit down with an open playbook and look at what the long-term plan is and see what we can do, what other people can do, and put it together in small pieces? Absolutely. Can I commit to you, Robert, asking me that here right now? Knowing that tomorrow,
I'm not asking for specifics.
Yeah, knowing tomorrow that the rules could change again, how can you?
What we're considering here is consistent with our zoning.
I just have a difference of opinion that it's consistent with kind of the spirit of what was planned there. I don't think heavy construction was planned there. And I do think now that the concessions made, I think that's very positive. Those things can be over where they're already at. We get the county buildings there.
Yeah, I guess
and those have moved. So why is the need now so strong to be 1 block from the marina? Really the last place that Washburn has, and really the last place from probably Ashland all the way up to kind of create some type of development.
So any representative of the American Hotel Association, if Mr. Dornberg's project was up the hill, as we just mentioned, on Omaha and Central, how would you feel about that?
It's hard to say on the spot. I still think if there's a better place that's located where the industrial is, that's better. But we're sitting here talking about, is there some type of property swap there? You know, we would be open to looking at any type of options related to that.
We've talked to people, the owners of property swaps. There's none to be had.
I don't think you've talked to Mr. Anderson about that.
Mr. Nick Anderson?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we have not.
Okay.
We have not.
Well, I guess,
Is he willing to discuss any possibilities of land?
Yes, but I think it would involve kind of nailing down what the long-term plan is.
And city council nor a mayor can guarantee what any future city council would do or could do. There's no authority to do that.
Okay.
No city has the authority to say what a future city council can do.
I think you are moving forward with that Anderson inquiry and Central Omaha.
Mr. Dornberg,
To look at, or
do you think it's possible to move your vote?
If we're gonna, I don't know if there's any way to do it, but if I was to go any direction, I don't know how wide the easement is going onto the coal dock or what utilities are down there, but I would entertain not encroaching on the shell space at the marina, but maybe something along the side of the road, closer even more to the coal dock. But I don't know if there's utilities there, and I don't know if the city is able to give me a slice of that at all.
I mean, up the hill. Closer
Yeah,
to
that we'd have to look at it. You know what I'm saying? It's not a decision I can make right now.
Since the floor is open, I think Ruth, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something? Can you come forward, use the microphone, please? I'm giving everyone the opportunity to speak, carrying it out here.
I have to repeat again for Ruth Amron, 409 West 7th Street. Now, Richard, you had said something about, you can't guarantee or say what another council is going to be doing. But isn't that why we spent so much time and so much money doing those comprehensive plans as to how we want things to be done, where we want things to be, so that there's a concession from the city as to how we want it to go. Now, according to some of the plans, do these businesses fit into those categories where they want to be? And how they would go?
Well, our city administrator says yes, the hotel association says no. Is that correct? Scott, did you want to say something about the comprehensive plan that has been brought up so many times?
Well, correct. The comprehensive plan is, yes, as we have discussed, 11 years old. We have amended that comprehensive plan, I don't know how many times. We re-looked at some of the areas when we redid the zoning. And we have been conscious of the concerns that have been brought forward. We have worked with the Pearl Beach proposal, and it is my opinion that their proposal fits within the comprehensive plan, mixed use. It fits within the current zoning. Everything works. I do not see it as an issue.
That's fine. No, that's fine. And there's something else I had seen in reading some of the information in the counselor's booklet there. That on, was it Omaha and Central, that whole area that was proposed for that housing, it says something about doing residential before doing any kind of commercial.
That was brought forward from a consultant at the time because of the, when they did a market study, they felt that our community could not sustain other than a residential building at this point in time.
Correct. That when we discussed that, the council's action leading up to that is keep commercial business on Bayfield Street. The city changed its sign ordinance, it joined the scenic byway. Anyone off Bayfield Street, you're not allowed off-premise signage. No businesses down in that new business or with existing signage can have signs on Bayfield Street, even directing them down to that area. So that is one of the reasons why they kind of looked at more towards the housing side of things, or any sort of businesses that don't really need signage. They don't need advertising as to where they're at. So that has been the logic behind that.
Just because there was a recommendation by a consultant does not make it the law of the city of Washburn.
Oh, I know, that's not
So
written
Aaron, you have
in
a comment?
stone from the mountain.
Aaron, you have a comment?
Well, I mean, it's been interesting to hear conversations about how we're not able to plan accordingly because this could be a slippery slope and those types of things. But if anything, to a fault, this council has been a stickler for that plan. I mean, Mr. Dornberg has had to move isn't any of the yard work off-site. This is not industrial any longer. It, like, tackle Scott, this fits the plan because we made it, and Mr. Dornberg's been very, polite in this process and making sure that he works with us. So I don't think we're in this real dangerous situation where we're not sure where we're going to go. If anything, this council makes sure that we are following those to a T. And we have, I think, in this proposal. But that was just, just some comments that I heard. I wanted to make sure that we're aware of just how close we've stuck to that in this whole process.
Anyone else, any councilman?
Well, I just got one other thing, please.
Someone else wanted to speak.
I just have one other thing.
Please make sure that other people want to speak.
It's just the fact that when you vote, I believe it's supposed to be a roll call vote because there are certain things in the Roberts rules that, whether it's high monetary or very important.
I already called for a
things.
roll call vote.
But just heard that there are others not
You'd
necessarily.
already called, yes. Did you want to speak,
Thanks.
sir? Yes. Please come forward.
I am Nick Szymanski, 845 County Highway C. Some of you I know, I do work here in the city. I'm also on the Harbor Commission. I guess I'm not gonna just make any comments about future plans or anything like that. I guess I'm just gonna make a comment on what's on your table right now. This initially came to the Harbor Commission several months ago, before your first meeting. And one of the main issues that was first brought up on this was the hotel was upset about there being the yard. And that was a tough decision even through the Harbor Commission. Harbor Commission did send it off for our recommendation for Pearl Beach. Since then, this more has been done. The yard in this case now is being offered to be moved off this site. And that was kind of more or less the biggest sticking point at that time, was the noise, and that's not the issue here. A couple things too that I think haven't really been stressed on is not only is this jobs, in order to have housing, you gotta have a job in order to pay your house bill. But the other thing I think too is the profits that the Harbor Commission and the Marina will get from this. I mean, we're talking about money to lift the boat out every year, put it in, transporting. We're talking about the tonnage weight that's gonna be used. And if the headquarters is here for them, they're gonna use the dock. 100 years from now, when you go to the museum here in town, and the museums look back on old businesses that were in your city, is there gonna be anything on that wall at the museum about there being housing? There could be for a business that is gonna be here for a long time, working on jobs around the entire Apostle Islands. This is also a business that I would assume is probably going to put bids on the work on our dock. I guess just in point, I think like I said, I think the profits over the years much outweighs this business than it does housing. You know, I don't have the actual numbers here, but I think just looking at tax base and again, what the marina will make and the Harbor Commission will make off this affects a lot. And the Harbor Commission, as of right now, is planning on paying much of what is, or a chunk of what is going to be the bill on this dock. The dock's got to be fixed. I mean, that's not even an option about fixing this dock. And you know, I think it's an income for the Harbor Commission when the Harbor Commission is paying out the money to fix this dock. I think is a key thing as well as the jobs. So that's just my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to close the floor?
I'll move to close the floor.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Did you want to say something, Jim?
Oh, I just want to be clear that I didn't care about a roll call vote. It was just the fact that we were calling to vote. I just want to be clear with that, because that was another comment made. I'm very open to what decisions I make and will back them up. I don't care if it's
I'm
individual.
sorry, I thought you were taking issue.
No, it was just the fact that we're calling to vote.
I want to make a comment. This may not be popular, but as mayor, I want to help guide decisions. I don't have a vote. Our charge last month, the administration, was seek out all other options. We tried very, very hard to seek out all other options. It's my observation tonight how torn city council is for this vote. How torn many of the community members are. You've heard from people, I've heard from a lot of people also. I would like to suggest, since no building is going to go up in the next couple of months, that we explore the possibilities, if it's feasible, to either put Mr. Dornberg somewhere else along Central Avenue, lot, I don't know whatever that number is, on this side, Bayfield Street side of the old forestry building, or discuss the prospect that Mr. Mulberg brought up, that Mr. Anderson might be willing to do something on land that he has access or knowledge of. Just so, as Jen said, we explore every possibility to know we've done everything we can. That's my suggestion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think that's a legitimate suggestion. My only concern would be that we set some sort of a timeline on that so that, because at some point a decision, I believe at some point a decision should be made.
I agree. And I would say the timeline is at the September meeting. We will make a decision. It'll be back on the agenda. If we come to no other solution between all the parties, I would put it back on the agenda for a decision.
And may I ask one other question? Has Mr. Anderson, I don't know his first name, ever approached the council regarding, or the mayor or the staff regarding this piece of property?
I have not had any discussions with them regarding this issue. I don't know if Scott has or not.
No.
Thank you.
And I'll just state that as we go further up the hill, what we talked about earlier, Scott, I agree with that the view there is higher, and so if you put a building there, I think we probably, I guess for me personally, it won't change my vote in terms of putting it higher up on the hill. I do think if we're gonna move forward with Pearl Beach, if there's no other solutions, I'm comfortable taking the vote tonight. I've heard enough. So I'm comfortable either way. I just don't want us to have hopes that, for me, I guess, if we're talking about going further up the hill, is that by the old forestry building? Is that what we're talking
Yes,
about?
it's up. It's lot 45. It's right on the corner where the area I mentioned that was owned by Mr. Woodward. That's kitty corner from my property across. It's right the next property down.
We can explore that, but
So that would be not taking a vote tonight.
right. And I guess I'm comfortable either way with taking the vote tonight or not. I've heard everyone speak. I do think if we go further up the hill, it'll be more of a block, you know, if you look at the elevation. And that's kind of what you were talking about too, Scott. Like, that's where they were talking about doing residential for the view. And so, I'm not so sure we can find other solutions. I just wanted to make sure that we investigated them all. So I'm comfortable either way, but I do want us to make a decision. I'm comfortable with 1 month later. I'm comfortable making the decision tonight. So there is a motion on the table.
I don't, yes. How would council like to proceed? Nothing?
I'm comfortable making a vote tonight. But if
And
people
also-
were passionate about extending another month, I also would be fine with that. I'm not passionate about extending it another month. Comfortable making it.
Okay. Then, here the majority is not passionate about moving it up to the next one. I'm throwing it out there.
I would be gone next month.
Then, any other discussion? Hearing none, I believe it's time for a roll call vote.
Barnes,
No.
Terry,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Mazias,
Yes.
McGrath,
No.
Novacek,
Yes.
Oswald.
Yes.
That the vote is
5-2.
5-2 in favor of Mr. Thornburg's project. We'll be in contact to work out the details. Thank you, it's a very difficult decision. Next on the agenda is
Residential chickens?
yes, it's chickens, and
Oh my God.
I was hoping
Nobody's
our-
paying for the chickens.
Let's don't leave us.
How many chickens you can have?
I'm staying.
We're gonna do the chicken dance, but everyone's leaving.
I'm gonna stay.
Chickens aren't as good as lamb sales? So, right, Jeremy's taking a quick break. We'll be- Sorry, hiatus.
Thank you, man.
Okay, so, Dan, you want to proceed with your? Jeremy, let's proceed anyway. Proceed.
Is everybody ready?
Chickens.
Okay, so, when we changed the zoning code, the ordinance no longer jives with where chickens are allowed. During the zoning code discussions, the thought at the time was to allow them pretty much anywhere people want them. We haven't made that change officially. The current zoning, or the current ordinance, was to allow them in residential areas. That has changed. So the question is, do you want to continue to allow them only in residential areas, which means we would just change the ordinance to match up with our current residential areas? Or would you want them elsewhere, everywhere? The application process would apply, the needing of the coop would apply, getting neighbors' signatures in a certain radius would apply. That doesn't necessarily mean we could stop it, from my understanding, if neighbors didn't want it, but that process has to go through. You have it everywhere. There are places where you have houses near businesses, so you could potentially have chicken coops next to a business. There's a map on the wall in your books of what is residential, what is commercial, what is cottage commercial. Like Mr. Kluger's home is cottage commercial, I believe. Currently not be able to have chickens where it might seem you could, but next down the street is also a business where you wouldn't think. So where do we want chickens?
For the ease of rational thought, why don't we just keep chickens in the residential as it is? And then if someone is heartbroken, well, they can chicken set my chickens. They can't have their own, I'll share.
Dan, could you?
But I don't have chickens.
Could you, say again, like, what the other option would be? Because does it have to be all, I mean, can you have very picky, like contingencies, like, yes, you can have chickens unless you're next to a business, or?
Yeah.
You don't want that, of course, I get that. I just wanna know what our other options are, I guess.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can
well,
imagine that would be pretty
I'm sure
frustrating.
everyone else has come across this with their ordinances, like everybody else is allowing chickens, so I'm sure there's some examples for us to look at, because we obviously don't want them next to a restaurant
Right.
or a business, so I'm sure there's examples out there to help us with this. No?
I did not look.
Sorry, I'm just saying, like, I'm sure there's something.
If I could, please.
Yeah.
Chime in on that. Yes, we had this debate when we had the old zoning districts. It's a little bit better now because our commercial districts are actually smaller than what we had. We had those residences that front Pine Street, those residents that front Omaha Street used to be in the commercial district. They are no longer in that. So we've limited we've shrunk the commercial district a little bit. So we have fewer houses that in the commercial area. However, there still are a few. There was one, I remember there was one family that was interested in doing what they've since moved away. So as far as doing those contingencies, it could be as simple as if there is a residential use in a commercial area, that could be allowed. However, that does not take into account what businesses might be next door, because you have to keep in mind in those areas that can change.
Right.
It could suddenly, you could have
A real estate agent, which would be fine, or then you could have a candy store,
Right.
which wouldn't be so fun to have.
correct.
Honestly, with the shrinking of our business district, and if you're moving in, or if you're there already, you have to understand, as we all do when we live in our particular zone, there's going to be some restrictions, whether it's an additional building or whatever. I'm inclined to keep it to.
Just keep it residential.
Residential. And that would be my thing.
I mean, honestly, I have no opinion either way, really, if the work doesn't change.
I think there's too
for
many
us.
variables when you're downtown, and being shrunk just alleyway, Bayfield Street alleyway. If you're in there and you want chickens, like I said, find somebody with chickens, because I don't want that in my business district.
And it's a good point to think about. It might be okay now, but if someone wanted to put it in a business, they might not, if there's chicken coop there, so, okay, I can see that.
What is, the R7, the waterfront residential chickens are allowed? Right?
Right now, we're allowing, we don't have a no-go zone, really, right now.
Correct, they are allowed, those areas are basically, say, homes in the East Superior Avenue area, along the lake. There's a portion of, Pump House Road, behind the ball fields. There is the condo association area, which they may have restrictive covenants on those properties anyway. I cannot say for certain. And then we do have a chunk down on the Summit Avenue area, the south entrance to town. That is the R7 area.
Yeah, really, Superior Street, those are large chunks of property, Pump House, larger chunks of property, all sort of in the woods. It wouldn't matter to me with the way down there.
There's also the, towards the end of town, is that kind of commercial still? Is that where you are, Scott? Towards the end of town?
South side, you're saying?
Yeah.
That's what you said, Summit, right?
Is that
down in the Summit?
Oh, okay, because you can conceivably see like homes there that could take.
So currently you cannot have chickens in the cottage commercial?
Well, according to our current ordinance, it's only residential areas, but those residential areas do not exist as they did in that ordinance. So it's kind of anywhere until we marry up our ordinance with our current zoning.
And then this proposal would be that just basically all the residential, R1, R2, R6, and R7.
If it's residential, yeah, I mean, if you want to add the cottage commercial area, just we have to be specific in every single zone.
That's not big for the street as well.
So the current ordinance specifies the residential zones, but again, some of those residential zones, well, they don't match up numerically speaking, how they're stated zone. And I don't think they're all the same areas.
I would make a motion to keep it in residential only.
And I will second her.
And one question on that, do you know if there are any, this would make them non-conforming chicken coops?
I don't know that.
I can't say that what I believe, I don't believe that we have shrunk any residential areas.
Just renamed?
That's what I thought also.
Right. Well, but if it did, we've already made them basically non-conforming already. If they were, so.
So the only thing I can see, yeah, I guess my other question is, I still be a little confused with some of the zoning, and so if we did have somebody like in the pink, like on the outskirts, like that's like this chunk, and that's totally but just say like they came to us, could we do a conditional use permit for a chicken coop if they wanted to pay for it?
Not currently, no. We purposely, this is one of the things that we did with the zoning, is we took all the, what I'll call animal control, whether it be chickens or bees or birds or whatever, out of the zone, because enforcing zoning is much more difficult than enforcing just the regular standard ordinances. The notification requirements is extremely time consuming. So if there's a problem, we want to deal with it in a timely fashion. So everything has been removed from the zoning code. It simply references the zoning districts to provide basically the map, the location. So everything is in the standard ordinances. So that's not a conditional
Conditional use permit anymore.
Right.
Okay. So if you're in C1,
So-
C2, or C3, you're not getting to. No way to do it.
Jeremy.
I was being good if we wanted to.
Jeremy, let's speak.
I would be in favor of having chickens in cottage commercial. Like that area in between the edge of town, where I used to work at North Lakes, I mean, they're giant yards. I mean, that seems like a perfect place to have chickens to me.
But then you travel into Bayfield Street and you're allowing them there.
I'm okay with that too, right? So.
And that's why I asked, because there is a portion of that C1, I agree with Jeremy, that there is, like, when you go around the corner and you go down.
I can understand it, yeah, but then.
I like seeing chickens. I think they're funny. I think they look, I like watching them. I think they're cool. I think they add something to the city.
And
So
that's
I think.
your take.
Yep, exactly.
And I'm not saying I don't either, but I'm saying not when you're coming into town. You got people bitching about Billy Dino and everything else that's around, so going, yep, and they have chicken coops in
Or
their
they-
business district.
Or they could be saying, wow, this community is very progressive that they allow chickens here. They're very concerned about where they eat. They like to have their, food locally sourced. Wow, what a thoughtful community that they would do this in their town.
I get that, Jeremy, I'm just being the devil's advocate on that flip side, because there are other people that are just going, ah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
And that,
You've heard me.
that goes until 8, is that right?
Yeah, I would see.
Highway C, okay.
So for example, we have a vacant restaurant right there.
Giant chicken coop.
What?
Giant chicken coop.
Locally sourced. Where do you get rice? Right out the yard.
Wow. We might need a break tonight. No, yeah.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I agree with, C2, and C3. I am struggling a little bit with that one. This is going down. From like,
Yes.
From the S curve
Basically
over.
from the bridge into
If
town.
they want to keep chickens and they live in the cottage commercial, then they can buy my home and have, in downtown Washburn, in a residential district, and they can have chickens.
Well, unless we decide tonight that we are okay with having them there, that they can have them in the cottage.
The problem is the commercial side of your cottage.
Nothing's ever easy for us, is
That's
it?
why we're here, Jen.
I know. So any other, solutions to that? You don't want to split cottage commercial from a street over? Just saying, just trying to
You
brainstorm.
have to change the zoning law.
Yeah,
You don't seem like to do that. Now, wait, we're not open the floor here yet, because I can't do that by my decree.
There's a motion on the table anyway.
There's a motion on the table. So are we gonna vote, or are we moving
Yes.
forward, what are we doing?
It's your choice.
Can we read the motion again? I've lost it.
Allowing chickens in the residential zoning only.
Any other discussion?
Can I just ask a
Yes.
procedural thing? If we vote no, could we then have a motion with including C1?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
If you fail, you could make another motion.
Okay, thank you.
So anyone else want to say anything?
Have we gotten any, we denied any things for chicken coops? Have we gotten any?
I don't know that for the time being, I haven't been doing, chicken permits, but I know that we've been getting a lot. I'll probably have to end up taking that over soon. So, but we have been getting several per year,
Yeah, it's,
so.
okay, pretty tough. It's getting, I would imagine it's getting more and more popular.
So this is squawk yes and cackle no. Any other comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I think we need a roll call, because I can't decide, I couldn't figure that one out. Roll call.
Oswald.
No.
Novacek.
No.
McGrath.
Yes.
Mazias.
No.
Austin.
No.
Gary.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
And the vote is,
No.
it's 4-2.
4-3.
4-3.
I couldn't read it right.
5-2.
I'm sorry.
5-2 no.
There were 3 no's.
Yeah.
There were
Yeah.
3 no's.
It seemed like there were three. It was
4-3.
4-3 to me.
I have.
Gary Barnes.
Please gotta get.
5 no's and 2 yeses.
Okay, Linda.
Barnes, McGrath, and.
I say yes
Gary.
to
Okay.
chickens only in.
Yes, Linda. Gary.
Yes.
That was a no, that's why it confused me.
All right.
So, and then Aaron is a no, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And Jen is a no,
Yes, she's a no.
correct.
I'm a no.
Mary is a yes, is that correct?
Correct.
And Jeremy, Karen, you are a no, is that correct?
It is correct.
And Jeremy, you are a no,
Correct.
so that makes it 4-3 in the no's.
So-
Motion fails.
I'll make a motion that we include, chicken rearing, what would you call it? The ability to have chickens in cottage commercial and residential.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Any other discussion on this?
I have a question.
Yes.
This is not pressing. We're going like one way or the other. What we haven't talked about is if there's some kind of other restrictions that we can put on it. So for example, you could be in cottage commercial, but if you're adjacent to blah, 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 these businesses, you have to be so many feet, there's isn't there something else we can do? Because I'm really comfortable with the cottage commercial, except next to certain businesses that it would deter from. I know that makes,
Bayfield Street would slay me.
what?
Bayfield Street slays me.
Agreed.
But anything beyond beyond Thompson's Creek
Right.
is fine.
So I'm trying to come up with a solution if there's some kind of other
You can, if you're asking, I mean, yes, legally you could do whatever you wanted as far as placing those restrictions on.
Sure.
Except for restricting it to certain individual businesses, you can't do that.
Right, but in general,
Yeah.
these businesses, not adjacency, so I'm just
Say
trying to
that
get a
to
solution.
the, what is it, to the east of Thompson's Creek?
Jeremy, you wanna say
Residences.
something?
Yeah, so we could pass this down, and then at another meeting, we can add further restrictions to it if you'd like. Or we don't need to decide that right
I asked one, when this was first brought up here, I asked about, if you want chickens, you have to have neighbors within a certain radius say yes or no. And I thought if they said no, then that would warrant further discussion. I was told it doesn't really matter if they say no, which is informing you. Could the restriction be if you get that certain radius, if people say no, make you guys figure it out?
Your other option again is you could table it and take it up at the next meeting if you wanted to search for other solutions.
With some kind of an option for west of Thompson's Creek.
Or that could be your motion.
Yeah, you can make a motion to amend my motion right now. Yeah, my motion. I'm taking this very personally.
I have a question.
Yes, Jerry.
I believe, Max, you shook your head no, that we couldn't split a district in terms of restricting chickens. Is that true or not?
I
Can we
would like
split
to
a
do a
district?
little bit more research on that,
Okay.
to determine the basis for that split.
Okay, because that's what we would be doing.
Right.
We would be segmenting just a portion of, potentially, of C1.
I guess, yeah, I guess I would prefer to go more along the lines of adjacent businesses not compatible or something, because if you had somebody that eventually, say, put a restaurant where the North Lakes building is, you wouldn't want a chicken coop next to where they're putting their restaurant. So I would say I would like to investigate more of some restrictions, either what Dan was talking about, or adjacent to certain businesses that have health and safety code food.
Wouldn't you run into problems with future businesses moving into
Yeah.
an already established chicken coop?
Yeah. And then you make me give away my chickens.
I'm just
Right.
brainstorming.
No, I think this is good, but yeah.
I think it's an
agree.
obstacle to businesses coming in for the future.
Yeah, I think we just keep it residential, that's it, where it's at.
I mean, I could live with the west side past Thompson's, but I'd rather have Max look up what we can do first.
Okay.
Give us
But
some
on
options.
that note, if they're there and a business moves in, there's nothing that business could do to force the chickens to leave if they were permitted to be there in the first place.
Or to then buy and open a business. So
Yes.
So there's a motion and second on the table.
Then you're saying that the business would not have any right?
If a chicken coop is in a lot and it's permitted to be there and it's complying with all regulations, a business that moves in next door is not grounds to say you need to move those chickens. If you can say that the community has changed so much over such a period of time that those chickens no longer should have been there, then maybe there's some grounds, but the case law on that is it's not a very strong case to get someone to move a permitted use.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, are we prepared to vote?
Do you guys want to know what the motion is?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Wait, all in favor, please say aye.
Wait, read the motion, I thought he was reading the motion again. He said
I
he's gonna
thought
read the
once
To
motion.
allow chickens in residential and cottage commercial, which
Okay.
includes Bayfield Street.
Up to
Portion
eight
of
acres.
Bayfield.
Correct,
Not all of
but
Bayfield.
Bayfield Street all the same,
From
the
eight
entry
acres.
end of Bayfield
Yeah.
Street.
Okay, but not all of it.
With
Do it,
no,
Freaking good enough
no
now.
chance of talking about restrictions or any kind of other option.
Jeremy's motion is residential and cottage commercial.
Correct, that's the motion. If you want to amend it, you would amend it if they'll be accepted by the person who made the motion and second.
I don't know how to amend it to give time for us to come up with any other.
That's why I threw out that option, if you wanted time, the thing to do is either vote this down and take it up the next meeting, or table it to the next meeting. Hearing no option request to table, we're taking a vote.
I thought we had a vote on it before I request to table. No, I request to table this into the next meeting so that we.
Is there a second?
Second.
You cannot have any discussion on the tabling a motion, so you vote yes or no to table it. All in favor to table this motion to the next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A unanimous vote.
Can I ask for clarification in terms of options? What does that mean, Jen?
It just means in terms of, it seems like we weren't all comfortable, we were comfortable with part of the commercial, C.
So when you would want to know,
cottage
can we break up a district?
Can we break up a district? And then are there any other kind of, adjacency type restrictions that we could put on it with buildings that we can use as examples? Because I'm sure other communities have dealt with this a little bit perhaps. And then we can make a more informed decision, and maybe we go back to our original motion, maybe we don't.
I just thought it'd be helpful for staff to know, kind of what your expectation was in terms of
Is that clear?
additional information.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have a break because I did not expect this to be a half-hour discussion on chickens. And you know what the rest of the agenda items are. Do anyone foresee a long discussion on anything else? If there's going to be a long discussion, we will take a break. If they're pretty straightforward, which I thought they might be, we can continue to the end.
Let's continue.
I'm not making any promises.
Okay. You're taking my position when I was on council.
I took your own seat.
I know.
My job.
No.
Discussion on action on adding a no-fault water and sewer enhancement endorsement to the city's insurance coverage. Scott.
It's actually from
Oh,
Dan.
Dan, I'm sorry, because I discussed it with Scott, I'm sorry.
It's pretty straightforward. It's an additional premium of around $3,000. What it does is if Jennifer's basement floods through a backup in the sewer system, and her insurance covers $5,000 and the cost to fix it is $30,000. Once her insurance is exhausted, this premium will help pay for that extra. So it is a goodwill gesture, and it's to give the community something if their insurance doesn't cover the cost of a backup of sewer.
And the backup is caused by the city.
No.
Oh.
We have coverage that is no fault if it's bad, if it's
Backed up by
our
the
fault.
city.
This is for, it doesn't matter.
Personal
Yep,
catastrophe.
it's a backup of the sewer, whether it's our problem or something within the housing, plumbing, we would help pick up the cost after the homeowner's insurance covers whatever they cover.
And do these happen very often?
I asked our public works, our utility, I didn't get a exact response. We talked about it, they agreed it's a good policy to have. In the long run, the cost I don't think is much for the benefit that it gives community members and when and if it happens.
I would speculate that given the very low cost of this insurance, it doesn't happen very often, because at one time happening, they're gonna pay out a lot of money.
Right.
Just to clean up your basement.
Yeah, I guess when I read this, the first thing I thought about is like, where did this come from?
It's just something.
Our insurance agent brought it to us. It was a new policy that came out, and I don't know if I included his email or not, but it was, he spoke about, having a council being offered a position of people asking for help in the sewer backup, having to decide yea or nay, this would cover that.
And it always comes to us to say no.
Gary, I think you and I were on council where this did come.
I just did this back, the only one I remember was after the water and sewer
Right,
project.
and it backed up and people were, this person was very upset and we just had to say no.
Sorry.
And this would give us an option to say, we'll help you pay for that. And they were quite upset, as you would be.
Yeah, no, I just.
Aaron.
Yeah, although I, in favor, I do wanna mention, just because I've lived in a section of town where this happens a lot to many houses. So I don't know if it's as rare as you'd think, in certain sections of town, but I don't know if that would actually have an impact on our costs at all.
It's also dependent upon the homeowner's homeowners insurance.
Right.
If they cover $250,000, it's unlikely it's gonna come to us.
That makes sense, okay, I just wanted to make sure, like.
And a lot of
Yeah, it
people
does happen
may
like
just
that.
deal with it and never think there is any kind of
Exactly.
recourse, and they don't go to Public Works.
That's exactly.
They just hire a plumber and get the mops out or whatever they need
I
to
think
do.
that's happening more often.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you want
Sure, I'll make a motion that we add a no-fault water sewer enhancement endorsement to the city's insurance company.
And I will second that. And I'm just also wondering if this will be advertised to the citizens somehow?
to say, right?
Put it on the website?
We can certainly put it on the website, and I'll put it on the mayor's Facebook page, but people continually say, you should let the public know, and my response is, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Since not many people read the newspaper anymore, I try to put it on Facebook.
Richard, you could speak up there and just kind of.
Or to the crowd.
If you guys want, like the signs that have the red lettering, the digital, we can put one of those out in City Hall.
I think we have an anti-red light.
How about putting a notice in the next water bill?
That would work
Yeah, there you go, perfect place.
I mean, that's something that people get, whether they read, well, they kind of read it because we gotta pay an amount.
Well, the mayor has a letter that goes with water.
Oh, right.
Add it.
Yep, I think that's
That
great.
would be a suggestion.
But first we come in and vote
You need to vote, yes.
You need to vote, yes.
Anyone
Well,
want to comment?
when it passes.
I just think from a legal standpoint, I think this is a great idea. Ashland has had a 10-year litigation about a sewer backup that they had, and a lot of the litigation was over whether it was the city's fault or it wasn't the city's fault. If it was the city's fault, they cover it. If it wasn't the city's fault, who covers it?
This covers it.
So that's been perfect. I don't know what the legal bill is, but by far and away more than any of this premium would ever be.
cheap way to have some.
I also speculate the first person who submits a claim for $20,000-$30,000 and we'll lose our insurance.
Well, oh, well.
Let's hope not.
But that first person's really happy.
They will be.
You'll get reelected.
All right, can we call it question?
Call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now, we have a discussion action on concept for ordinance change to provide for an extension of premises for alcohol licenses during special events. Dan, please take this away.
Okay. So currently, if you have an alcohol license, the ordinance states that it is regulated to your building or the beer garden. So if you want to have an outside event, like Harborview wants to have a wedding outside on their property, our ordinance says that they can't serve alcohol outside of their licensed premise, which is the building or beer garden. So what this does is for those who have not a temporary license, but a yearly license, that for special events, they can take their license, whether it's beer or beer and alcohol, that license can be used outside of their licensed premise for that special event.
But on their property.
On their property.
With the same provisions
Yes,
of if it were inside,
correct.
like under.
They have to have bartenders, they have, everything, what's inside is transferred outside. I've discussed it at a couple of recent conferences. It seems to be a common practice. I gave you some examples in your binder. I think it should be a relatively simple form.
Do we need a vote?
Yes.
We need a vote for you to present an ordinance change.
Oh, well, yes, so the idea, talking to Scott, is that we would present a concept and then, with Max, draft up a ordinance, which we would then present the final. So really, it's one, do you like the concept, and two, what do you want in it? The things that I would say you should have in it, as I discussed, is a specified area, whether it's a tent, roped off, something where you know that it is here. It should be signed off probably by the police, just to make sure that they're okay with the area, whether it's proximity to a street or what have you. As far as cost, the mayor has expressed that he believes it could be a minimal to no cost. I'm okay with that. I think it's minimal on our part if we make it minimal on our part, meaning that the application process is simple, just business, maybe, location, hours. A lot of that would still apply to our basic ordinances, hours. Same liquor laws apply in our.
I,
we may.
I wanted it, if it was very simple, and all it would take is a simple form to fill out, it would take a minute or two to do, and the police chief would okay it, and you have a designated area. I would prefer it be no cost, as I see this as a way to help our businesses in town expand what they do. If it got elaborate and cumbersome, that's a whole nother thing, but I would not want it to be that at all. So I see this as like for the event center, a real boon to them. They could have outdoor weddings, which people want, overlooking the lake, and have it, because right now they couldn't serve a drink outside, other than their little patio they have. Yes, did you want to?
Mary Whistler.
No, I noticed some of it was, also part of the noise ordinance. I can't tell you how many phone calls when snug is loud or stage north used to be, and, you know, we kind of feel like it's just a couple months out of the year, just.
Right.
But something to reflect that it's the drink and all of that, but if there's any music,
Yeah. I would think that if it was at, for example, the Harborview Event Center, since they own the motel.
I'd say the noise would just follow our.
General
yes.
ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
same as, you know, unless there's a lessening of like we do for Brownstone. I'd say everything we currently have applies other than bringing the license outside into a specified area.
Yes, Karen.
And was the idea to have, an application every time they had a special event?
Yes.
And so like 5 days before or 2 weeks before?
Well, that depends on.
Yeah, whatever the ordinance says.
Well, it depends on as well as, do you want this to be a council decision at every event? If you want that, then we needed a certain time to get it to you before that.
No. Staff, we trust you, Dan. You can sign off on the wedding tent part.
I would say, you'd say 48 hours, 72 hours.
Whatever, I mean, whatever.
Well, Kenny needs some time. certainly
Yeah, I
want
mean,
the
that
police
should
department to
still
have
be
some-
relatively simple.
I'd say 5 business days or
That's-
10 business days.
It won't take much to process. I think 5 is, people should have an idea of their event more than 5 days ahead of time.
Especially a wedding.
Do we need to take action, or can we just by consensus indicate that let's go
It's
forward
just
with an
by
ordinance
consensus,
to look at?
consensus, you're in favor of such.
Yeah.
You've got an idea, if you have, between now and later, if you have a specific item you'd like to add to this, please contact Dan.
Okay.
And he could perhaps have his turn.
The Kenosha regulation speaks of just allowing wine and fermented malt beverages. Some direction for you, I would say it's open bar, anything.
It's
That's my
whatever.
opinion, but just
It's not open bar, only be what your current license is.
Right,
Yeah. So if you have a beer license, you can't now sell alcohol, liquor.
Sure.
Right, if you have a full bar like the Harborview does, they can have.
Theirs might be different.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yes, these are all a little different. It's just pick some ideas from others. But yeah, the idea is that their license would transfer as is.
And we'll have an opportunity to look at it in September.
Yeah.
Tweak it.
Yeah.
If we need to.
So, are we ready to make a motion to approve the alcohol licensing?
Not yet, we're going to.
We
that's
haven't
next-
moved there yet.
Next
We
fun
haven't
event.
moved there?
No.
Now,
Just
speaking of
moving
which,
on.
bartender license renewals, number 20 through 35, 20-35 through 41. Is there a motion to approve?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I make a motion that we approve bartender licenses.
I second that.
Those numbers you just gave.
I'm sorry. I second that.
Any discussion on these? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
3 hours and 15 minutes.
Thank you, everyone, for a difficult discussion and motion. Chess.
Well, I'll just cry every time I have to look at it. 24 feet. It was only 16 feet last month. Now it's 24 feet. Thank you, Scott.
Maximum building height is 45.
It could be worse. See, it could be worse. Life could always be worse.
More positivity, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
A little bit fewer positivity, a little longer, and
Maybe they'll paint it.
Linda, Jennifer, you go on it? I'm in your district.
All right.
Sweet Rock area is my house.